Good evening there, everybody. Hopefully, you all are having a wonderful day today. This is Boxing Realist here, obviously, and today I'm doing a little bit of a live stream. I don't know how many people are really going to tune into this or not, but pretty much the point of this video is to kind of put it out there and, well, obviously, but also to respond to some of your guys' comments because I noticed you guys had a certain amount of comments in my latest video that I kind of wanted to discuss. And this is also going to be my opportunity to kind of discuss who also are the most overrated boxers within that of the boxing circuit at the current moment in time. That's basically what we're going to kind of talk about today. But I'm going to be talking about my most recent video, talking about is David Benavidez ducking Dimitri Bivol and Beterbiev, and we're pretty much going to get straight into it. And then we're going to talk about some of the more, just in my personal view at least, and then you guys, depending on how many of you tune into the video, you guys, of course, can also give me your personal view of who you believe are the most overrated boxers as well. Let me make sure that I got this on. Yeah, man, I'm live. Sure that I got this on. All right, man. So I need to yeah, I know it's a really weird time to go live right now. But because I have not posted as much lately. I've been busy with so many things, but I wanted to do this because as I stated, I planned on doing a couple of different format videos, but I really wanted to do this because I also wanted to get your guys' opinion in there as well. And let me see if I can see the comments here because this is there we go. That's where we go. Okay, I was on the wrong thing. Yeah, good to see you, Farrell World Class. Also, yeah, I've seen you here a couple times before. So let's just get into David Benavidez in terms of do I think that he's quote unquote overrated? Do I think that he will fight Dimitri Bivol or to Benavidez? Some of those other things. Let's get straight into that and let's see what some of these comments end up having to say. So, of course, basically what the recent news is that David Benavidez, he's going to be fighting that versus Ramirez, with a little bit of a surprise to me as well. Now, they've been talking about it for a while, but I didn't really expect him to do it at least this soon. So I was a little bit surprised. But let's see overall what some people say. Uh, let's see. So Mr. Classic Metal, he's actually been around my channel for a while. He says, here's the thing. Benavidez never intended to fight any of the top light heavyweights. Ring IQ Boxing covered that extensively right after the yard, and I recommend you watch the videos. Benavidez started mentioning Zerto's name since around the time of the Morrell fight, which is more than a year ago now. It's nothing new. Keep in mind as well that Benavidez announced that Zerto fight during his post-fight interview, which clearly indicates that everything was already arranged. I agree with that. What he says, including date and venue, which means that during all of his talk about supposedly fighting Beterbiev or Bivol, they were making Benavidez versus Zerto instead. Well, just to kind of respond to that really quickly, I think that you can debate that more than likely. They were kind of talking about it. I don't know necessarily if they were planning to completely do it over that of Bivol versus that of Beterbiev, but I mean, you never personally know. But let's see this next part. Regarding Bivol, the WBC were quick to strip him of his title. In fact, his next mandatory was supposed to be via the IBF, but the WBC jumped to the line to order Bivol versus Beterbiev instead, knowing full well agreed to a third fight against Beterbiev. It's good that the preferred having Mexican champ, and they were hostile against Russia because Solomon virtue signal. The reason why it took so long for Beterbiev versus Bivol to get made was because the WBC refused to sanction the fight. One thing I will personally state is this. The WBC, excuse me, has definitely shown a lot of favoritism towards not only their Mexican champions, but a lot of their champions in general. I remember Deontay Wilder when he also was a WBC champion, and Dillian White was his mandatory for literally years, and he would just refuse to fight him, and basically everything was off the hook. So it definitely has been a problem. But let's see the last little bit that he says there. He says Benavidez had the opportunity to fight Beterbiev a few years ago. So the WBC offered him a direct shot at the title, but he turned it down. And Beterbiev had more than one belt. He's an interesting bit of information that most people are not even aware of, or perhaps conveniently overlook. David Benavidez has never defeated a reigning champ to win a title. Sure, the name Lakowicz, I believe, is known to make his fighters avoid risky fight. So that's definitely a lot to unpack right there. I mean, I'm not going to go as far to claim that David Benavidez is necessarily avoiding anyone as of yet. It kind of depends on your outlook of it. But when you talk about it, I do think that, after the Zerto fight, that he is going to have to try to fight him next. That's just my personal view of it. Now, David Benavidez not taking the Artur Beterbiev fight when he was at 168. That, to me, in my personal view, I don't think that really is that much of an issue, because I think that he was still, kind of waiting for the Canelo Alvarez fight a little bit. And maybe he's talking about when he first went to 175, and I kind of understand like what he's talking about there. But once again, I'm not going to go. Oh, man, sorry guys, my voice is like dead over here. He's necessarily 100% ducking or avoiding those guys, but I do think that he needs to fight him afterwards. Anyways, that being stated, let me now talk about David Benavidez. Let me see if let me might have to restart this. I'm not sure. Let me see. Hold on there, folks. Good evening. Let's see. Hold on there, folks. Let's see. I mean, hopefully it's working right now. Let me know if it keeps cutting out, and if it keeps cutting out, then maybe we'll do it somewhere else. I don't know, but hopefully this continues pretty well. Anyways, that being stated, I wanted to talk about David Benavidez because there's been a certain amount of conversations about, is he overrated? Is he someone that deserves to be on the top 10 pound per pound list? I think that David Benavidez does personally deserve to be on a top 10 pound per pound list. I think that, he's fought Caleb Plant, he fought Andrade. Who else did he fight? He fought David Morrell. I don't think that Anthony Yard, and I don't think that some of the other guys he fought were that great, but I think he deserves to be on there. Caleb Plant and what's his name? Oh yeah, Andrade. They were decent, so I'll put him there at the very least. Oh my God, my voice, guys. Sorry, man. And my voice was fine like all day, and now it's just like dead. Sorry about that. Anyways, but okay. So we talked about David Benavidez and my personal view on him. So then who is a fighter that I personally do find to be a little bit overrated? Well, one fighter that I think for sure that I have to put on the list. I mean, there's probably about 10 to 12 that I can think of right now that would for sure be on my list. I think the first one that I'm going to have to start off with is probably Demetrius Bubu Andrade. And I've been saying this for a very long time now. I'm not going to necessarily put him on my top 10 list as of right now, just because he hasn't been active. But I've I've been stating this, for a very decently long time about Andrade. Andrade is someone I think that is very particularly talented. I think overall that, he brings a lot to the table. But when you talk about in terms of his career and also just in terms of his actual skill set, there was nothing ever to me that ever popped off to me. I mean, he's very talented. He's clearly an A-grade level fighter. But in terms of him being this world beater, this guy that was just going to beat the likes of a peak version of Canelo, or someone that was going to be the next Mayweather, I just never seen that from him. And Andrade, in my personal view, he always kind of came across as someone overall that really was more Caleb Plant-esque. I never thought that he really was a tremendous fighter. I thought that he was a very good fighter. And also another thing to mention about him is that, his resume, and I've mentioned this a multitude of times, he has never fought an official champion. And there was someone actually, I just read a statistic where someone mentioned about David Benavidez, where he never beat a reigning champion in order to become champion. Demetrius Andrade has never defeated a champion in general. And I'm not bullshitting you about that. He's never defeated one. Like, he's never been in the ring, even with a former champion before. The best fighter he's ever been in the ring with was Vanas Martirosyan, and Vanas Martirosyan has never even come close to winning a title before. So that's why I've always said that about Andrade. I think that he is talented. I don't think he was ever quite as talented as what people tried to make him out to be. But he was someone overall that did have relative talent. But then he gets in the ring with David Benavidez. It's allegedly a 50-50 level fight, according to a lot of his fans. And he gets in there and he doesn't even last the full 6 rounds. And this is basically a fighter that, sure, he's moving up a weight class, but it's not like he has that much wear and tear or anything, because he hasn't fought anybody throughout his whole entire career. But anyways, let me see if I have some water here, folks. By the way, because God, my voice is just so raspy. I'll be right back, folks. I need to get water. It'll take like 30 seconds. I'll be right back. Hold on one sec. All righty, folks. Oh my goodness. Sorry about that, everybody. Okay. All right. My voice was literally fucking fine all day, and then like just right now it excuse me, turns into this goddamn raspy mess. Excuse me. Let's see what Hollow Ninja has to say. At this point, if people still say that Terrence Crawford is overrated, they are 100% casuals. Keep up the good work, realist, even though we may not always agree. Yeah, man, thank you so much. So, that actually brings me to another comment. Let me go to another comment very quickly, because someone in my latest video, they of course kind of responded to one of the things I said about Crawford. Whew, boy. God damn my voice. Sorry, everybody. Whew, let me try to get more of this water. Good Lord, man. Okay, there we go. It's getting a bit better. All right, so let's see. So this person brought up a very interesting point, because in my most recent video about David Benavidez, I talked about him allegedly ducking the ball. What I brought was, and I stated that he had a very padded record, which he does. We'll talk about him, here in a bit. But, I said there are levels to padded records. There are guys like Crawford in a way, who have some great A-grade level names on their resume, but do have somewhat of a padded record in certain areas. Then there are guys like Deontay Wilder, who have only ever fought like one great contender and really fought a whole bunch of bums after that. And then you get guys like Gilberto Zeta Ramirez that literally just haven't fought anybody other than like Arthur Abraham and Dimitri Bivol. And he was about 20 pounds bigger than Dimitri Bivol and a lot bigger in every category. And he pretty much got his ass handed to him. So that's what my point really was. But anyone who knows my channel or has been around my channel for a while knows that although I've always thought that Crawford was a great fighter, that yes, I have said that in the past that his record, in my personal view, has been slightly padded. But let's see overall what this person has to say. I believe that their name is D Channel 582. Okay, so let's see what he has to say. He said, I listened to most of this video until you lost me with Terrence Crawford having a padded resume. I think this is one of the reasons I struggle with American boxing fans. Everything is affinity bias. Dante somewhat had a point, but because you guys, Americans, race bait, especially him, so much that you missed the point. He said he wouldn't mind him taking the fight as long as he was going to call out the fighters. The public were eager to see him fight. That's fair. And I actually agree. And I actually agree with that point. I agree with that point, but we're going to talk about that here in a minute. You don't want him calling out big fights. But again, he race baits and brings a name like Haney couldn't say that and get away with it, blah, blah, blah. So the points that he brought up there, I actually think, and what's up, DGO, what's good? The points that he brought up there actually were not bad at all. And I agree with him 100% that just because someone, a lot of the times, just because they say something that I don't agree with, doesn't mean that, they can't say something that's not, in my personal view, 100% true. And I think what Dante said is acceptable. The reason why I mentioned it was not because I didn't agree with what he said, because he's right. David Benavidez, if he wants to be labeled as a top five or top 10 pound for pound guy, but especially top five, you are going to have to go after guys like Better Beef and that Abivo. Those are the true top 5 pound for pound fighter type of guys, not Gilbertos or Ramirez. So he's 100% right about that. My thing when it comes into is that I take a look at kind of future implications and I say, okay, what's your reason for doing this? And what are you going to try to do this at the future? And the reason why I've gotten on Dante's ass and the reason why I've done this is because Dante will do this with any non-black fighter, such as Canelo, David Benavidez, Usyk, blah blah blah. Usyk, and a great example is one of my more recent videos as well, where I talked about Alexander Usyk, where Usyk relinquished, I believe, his WBO title. He just did it to face Danny Dubois, in the rematch, and now he just recently did it, with the Fabio Wardley Joseph Parker winner. And Dante, of course, went on this thing saying, well, Usyk, he must have a lot of respect for him and blah, blah, blah. Basically kind of alleging like he's avoiding this guy. My thing is with Dante is that he will rush to a conclusion that this guy needs to fight this guy or that, he might be ducking this guy whenever it comes to a non-black fighter that is on the pound for pound list or that he believes that he's going to have to future like take down. But if it comes to a Javante, a Devin Haney, a Crawford, all of a sudden he's like, well, we already know that those guys are going to fight the best. We already know that, afterwards he's going to fight this. So let's get off his ass a little bit. That's the reason why I stated that, because that's what Dante, that's basically his game every single time. Whenever Usyk or Canelo or Benavidez or something, guys that he believes that he needs to tear down, that's when all of a sudden he'll go after them. So that's the reason why I did that. But just to talk about Terrence Bud Crawford, I think that Crawford, especially after the Canelo Alvarez victory, I think that he really has earned a lot of people's respect, including mine. He's always had my respect and always had my admiration as someone who loves watching boxing. That being stated, you can have an all-time great level fighter and still have the record be a little bit padded. It is what it is. And the proof of this, if you don't believe me, you don't have to, but just take a look at his record before he fought Sean Porter. Before he fought Sean Porter, he was 37-0, and the best opponent that he had ever fought was probably Yuriorkis Gamboa or that of Victor Postal. And, still very two good opponents, but the problem is that when you're 37-0 and you've now fought one top 10 pound per pound fighter, then yeah, you could debate that that's a little bit of a padded record. Because if we're going to criticize certain fighters like Naoya Inoue and Roman Chocolatito Gonzalez and certain guys like that for having a padded record, well, then we have to do the same thing with Crawford. And I think that a lot of these channels, and I'm not going to say everyone, because of course there's channels that are dedicated to tearing down certain demographics and vice versa. But when it comes to a lot of the LDBC and new media channels, they'll give extra credit to some of these Black American fighters, especially like that of a Crawford. But then if Inoue or someone else would be in a similar situation, apparently they're only ranked so high because of their complexion. So, I mean, that's the reason why. And of course, they're not the only ones that do that, but that's the reason why I brought it up. But we'll talk about Crawford's record here in a minute. Just give me one sec. Drink the sip of water here. Okay. But, oh boy. Okay. But Crawford, when we take a look at his record, and I don't think that he's overrated, at least anymore at this, this thing. Well, Hollow Ninja says, padded, at least he did it without catch weights and rehydration clauses. Well, you can claim that if you want to, and I understand what you're trying to claim. But the thing is that, and I assume that you're kind of talking about Canelo there. Canelo's not really the only one that's ever done that within history. The multiple, Pacquiao has done it, Mayweather has done it, and we still count those wins as legitimate A-grade level wins. Of course, unless it's something that, is so drastic that is just going to completely, do the fighter in. Like if it's kind of what Pacquiao did to De La Hoya, then okay, that's not something that I would do. And maybe you're not only addressing Canelo. I assume that you mainly were addressing him, but It depends on who it is. And well, listen, here's the thing I'll say. Would you rather, because this is my question, would you rather, and if any of you guys actually want to join the live soon, feel free. Because fuck, I don't know if I can talk all by myself on this one today, guys. I'm sorry. But anyways, yeah, no, man, you're cool. You're cool. I get what you mean, though, Hollow. Don't get it twisted. But my question is this: would you rather have a win over, say, an Aegis Kavalaskas at 100% with no rehydration clause, with nothing like that, or would you rather have a win, say, over Danny Jacobs, where there might be a rehydration clause, but he still appears to be, at A grade level form? I understand like what some people are trying to say with that, but to me, it's like when you're not having these rehydration clauses and all sort of stuff with, say, Aegis Kavalauskas and some of these other guys like Felix Diaz, like, to me, it just don't matter that much. And that Crawford, that's why the Canelo was so massive, because that's kind of what the narrative was for a very long time, and it was somewhat true because Crawford did not have the best of resumes. He just did not. It was not really until he started fighting Sean Porter that his level of competition started getting very consistently good. He fought Sean Porter, then Spence, then Madrimov, then Canelo. Those are 4A grade level wins, but it took him 38 fights to get there. So that's why I'm mentioning when you talk about those fights before, he had Gamboa and he had Postal. Those are very good wins, but a lot of the other wins, I mean, and Hollow Ninja says, well, Crawford's resume is good for what it is. I mean, you can claim that if you want to, but the thing is that, because I also give the same criticism to Naoya in a way. I don't take a look at a lot of the opponents that he fought at his lower weight classes either, as he's confirmed A grade level fighters. So I mean, it just is what it is. Because I'm sorry, but I don't count Julius Anango as an A grade level fighter. I don't count Felix Diaz as an A grade level fighter. I don't count Thomas Delorme. I don't count overall Ricky Burns. I don't count Raimundo Beltran. I don't count those guys. I count Gamboa and I count Postal, but I mean, it just those other fighters that he fought. No, I'm sorry, they were not complete A grade. And he said that Terrence Crawford was ducked in every division that he was in. Well, I mean, there were certain fighters that definitely did avoid him, but there was also a part of Crawford to where he made it a lot harder for himself because he also did not sign with the PBC. And that's also been another thing about his career as well. Do I think that the PBC fighters were just trying to rush in the ring to fight him? No. But that being stated, Crawford also made it really hard on himself by re-signing with that at Top Rank. He should have not re-signed with this company that knowingly has an issue with Al Heyman and knowingly also had an issue with past fighters like Mikey Garcia, Oscar De La Hoya, and Floyd Mayweather. So, I mean, Crawford, that was his fault. He's going to have to bite the bullet on that one. I mean, it just is what it is. But Crawford, of course, is an all-time grade level fighter. And after that, Canelo Alvarez, when he is someone that is a phenomenal level fighter. I mean, he's obviously up there with any fighter almost that I've ever seen. But let's see. He said he didn't have to sign with the PBC. Top rank and PBC fighters were in every division. Yes, they were, but the bigger the fight is, the harder it is to make. So I understand the point what you're trying to make. But if he really wanted to fight with the PBC fighters, he should have crossed the street, and he didn't. So, I mean, and I love Terrence Crawford. Crawford's a great, competitor. He's an all-time great level fighter. But my thing is that you can't overall do this stuff where you claim that everyone's avoiding you, but you're not even willing to cross the street. You got to cross the street before, overall, you're saying all this stuff about people avoiding you. Well, I mean, you're saying I'm leaving out crucial details, but what details am I leaving? What details am I leaving out? Did Crawford not re-sign with Top Rank? Anyways, we'll wait for him to respond. But that's my thing about Terrence Crawford. But Crawford's an all-time great fighter. But yeah, no, I mean, it just is what it is. It's whatever. Well, this guy says, where was the wrong side of the street with Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury? And yeah, I understand what you're saying. But also take a look at how many fights that were so difficult to make. I mean, just because Crawford had a tough time or Mayweather had a tough time doesn't mean that every fight is going to be the same way. But the thing is, overall, is that just because one big fight gets made doesn't mean that it's going to be the same thing everywhere else. Take a look at how long it took for Mayweather and Pacquiao to get signed up. Take a look at how long it took overall for other fighters of different promotions to get signed up. AJ versus Wilder. Take a look at how long that took. Take a look overall at why Mikey Garcia, Oscar De La Hoya, and Floyd Mayweather all left Bob Arum, because they felt that he was not giving them the fights that were going to match up to their true potential. They all had problems with Bob Arum trying to match them in certain fights that they felt were not revelatory of their full potential. And I think that Crawford should have been able to realize that if you truly wanted those fighters, I think that you could have went over to the PBC and it would have been a lot easier. And even Crawford has recently complained that, he believes that Bob Arum was a part of the reason why he wasn't getting those big fights. That's what Crawford said, not me. So, it just is what it is. So a partial reason why it was Crawford's fault. That's just the truth of the matter. But, it's whatever. But nothing against you, by the way, Holland Ninja. It's just, yeah, we disagree. It's cool. But anyways, so I talked about Crawford. And I did state that before he started fighting guys like Porter and Spence, yes, I believe that his record was a bit padded, because it was. It just is what it is. But when you talk about other fighters, so this is a video dedicated to some of the most overrated fighters in boxing. We got to go with our next selection, Gilberto Zurdo Ramirez. I think that Gilberto Zurdo Ramirez is relatively talented. He's got a lot of power. I think that he has boxing ability. I don't think I've seen a more padded record probably within my life. And when I mean padded, I don't just mean that you're fighting a whole lot of bums or you're fighting guys that aren't really that good. I mean that sometimes you're fighting guys that your promoter is trying to make look better than what it actually is. And I don't think that explains anything better than Gilberto Zurdo Ramirez. This man, I think, went like 42 and 43 and 0, and you can't remember one fucking fighter on his resume other than Arthur Abraham. Like, you can't remember one. There's not one fighter on there, I think, that you can really name other than Arthur Abraham. So that's the thing about Gilberto Zurdo Ramirez. Then he gets in the ring with a true, like, top 10 level pound for pound fighter. And by the way, Zurdo was never a natural 168 pounder. That dude is huge. Like, he's at the very least a cruiserweight. And anyone who knows me knows that I'm a major stickler for, in my view, weight bullies. But he then gets in the ring with Dimitri Bivol, who clearly looks about like a weight class and a half smaller than him at the very least. And Dimitri Bivol literally dog walks this man. He literally just walks right through him like it's not even close. And that's why Gilberto Zurdo Ramirez, he would also probably have to be near the top of my list overall for the most overrated fighters in boxing. And the Benavidez versus Zurdo fight, it is going to be very, very particularly interesting. I would favor David Benavidez because I don't think he's quite as big as what Zurdo is, but he's definitely more talented in my view. And I think Benavidez knows that. But, I mean, don't get it twisted. It still is a very dangerous fight, and Benavidez has to be careful. But I think that Benavidez will come out on top ahead, very clearly. But we'll see what ends up happening. By the way, I'm going to put the link down below just in case anyone wants to end up joining. What's up, Mike Rodriguez? What's good, dude? Once again, I apologize, everybody, because I'm trying to talk the best I can. My voice is like dead. I was just going to kind of do a regular recording video, but I for today. Okay. I think I cut out there for a minute. Yeah, it was last. Okay. So for anyone who want to join the stream sometime, there's a link right there. I'm trying to think of who my next entry would be. I've made a multitude of lists. So let's move on to the heavyweight division. And now you're all good, Holland Ninja. Don't worry about it, my dude. Don't worry about it. And I understand your points, man. We just kind of disagree on that a little bit, but it's all good, bro. Don't worry about it. You're good. But yeah, hopefully you can tune in next time. So if we're talking about the most overrated fighters in boxing, let's now move on to the heavyweight division. Now, there's always been talks about who's overrated. I've heard, Tyson Fury. I've heard Usyk. I've heard AJ. And, we'll get to them, here in a little bit. Deontay Wilder. I think the most overrated heavyweight in the world right now, probably is Martin McCauley. And, certain people may disagree with this. When certain fighters end up having one great performance, especially over a great prospect or someone that was undefeated or someone that they did not expect to win, immediately they just shove them, overall to the top of the list. And then all of a sudden, all these rumors start coming out. And when Martin McCauley beat the hell out of Jared Big Baby Anderson, who probably was the favorite to win that fight, talking about Anderson, all of a sudden, all these rumors just started popping out. Like he was knocking out AJ, he knocked out Usyk in sparring, he was beating up Tyson Fury, all this other stuff. Then in his next fight against Joseph Parker, now to be fair, he definitely was not 100%. He gained 30 pounds of pure fat, which it's obvious that the man has an eating problem and he's very undisciplined. I mean, that's just, that he clearly has a problem with that. But he gets knocked out in 2 rounds. But that's not really even the fight that I'm going to mainly judge him off of. The fight after that against F.A. Jagba, a guy who got completely dismantled by Frank Sanchez, Martin McCauley actually pretty much lost to him. Now, the fight was counted as a draw, but it was not a draw. Martin McCauley lost that damn fight. Anyone who watches that fight knows that Martin McCauley, that he lost that damn fight. It wasn't really that particularly close. And he showed that he does not really have an extraordinary level defense. He is non-disciplined. He is, someone that's a little bit overweight and uses his size and his power a lot to the best of his ability. And then you get certain guys, like, of course, I reviewed Dante's Boxing Nation, and he talks about this stuff about how Alexander Usyk, how he was knocked out by Martin McCauley in sparring. We don't even know how true this stuff is. We hear rumors about sparring literally all the damn time about how fighters are knocked out or this happened and this happened. And, sparring, of course, is to be taken seriously somewhat, but it's not the be-all, end-all. It doesn't mean that just because something happened in sparring that it's going to happen in the fight. And, the reason why I mentioned that is because I remember Dante once again, and this was for my Usyk video as of recently, where he was said, well, I would love to see him fight Martin McCauley because McCauley knocked out Usyk in sparring. And he just takes this as a pure fact because he's trying to make Usyk look worse, so he's not remembered as the best fighter of this generation, potentially. And so that ended up happening. And I remember for such a long time when there was the Tyson Fury versus Dillian White conversation, and, because they wanted to make Tyson Fury look bad, Dante and some of these guys were saying, well, Tyson Fury is avoiding Dillian White because apparently he used to knock him out in sparring and blah, 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 all sort of stuff. But then when it came to Deontay Wilder, where Dillian White was his mandatory for I don't know how many years, they said nothing about it. They said that Deontay Wilder, he doesn't need to fight him and all this sort of stuff. And Dillian White was like his mandatory for like 3 years. So that's the reason why, sometimes I get on the ass of some of these channels sometimes, or at least talk about them, because a lot of the narratives that they put out there, they can be very misleading. And they'll talk about certain things, but they won't talk about other things. They'll talk about how Tyson Fury allegedly was avoiding Dillian White and how Usyk was knocked out in sparring by Martin McCauley, but they're not going to talk about how Deontay Wilder avoided Dillian White for about 3 years, or at least did not fight him. So, I mean, it just is what it is. That's the reason overall why I kind of talk about those things. But Martin McCauley, he's someone that is talented, and he's someone that I think has a lot of potential, but I need to see him beat some true top 5 guys to ever place him there. And that's why when people kind of put him in the same conversation with guys that I think right now are actually within the top 5, I do think that he is slightly overrated. I don't think that he's massively overrated, but I do think that he is slightly overrated. And that just begs the question, is he really on the same level as guys like Fabio Wardley or Joseph Parker or Ajit Kabayel? And I think that the answer right now is no. Because I think that Joseph Parker, Ajit Kabayel especially, and Fabio Wardley, I think that they probably all would have had a better performance over that guy in F.A. Jagba. I think that overall that they would do more in their career. And so the question is kind of about Martin McCauley, is that where does he kind of go from here? We'll see. But the question is that can he really, live past that one great performance? That's kind of the question. But anyways, but let's see who else overall I got here on my list. And by the way, if you all want to comment down below and talk about who your personal picks are, and I, will discuss and tell you whether I agree or disagree, certainly feel free. Who do you guys believe are the most overrated boxers in boxing today? So let's now go on to my next pick. And if any of y'all comment, then I'll kind of respond below. But the next pick overall that I think that I would probably have to have on my list, I think I have to go with Israel Madrimov. Israel Madrimov is someone that uh, I think is very good, but I think because he had such a good performance over Terrence Bud Crawford, who of course right now is looked at as the number one pound for pound fighter, and even before then, of course, was looked at as a relative number one pound for pound fighter. I think people were taking a look at him and thinking that he was better than what he actually was. And I've already discussed this with the Crawford fan base as well. And good. Thank y'all for commenting, by the way. I'll respond to that here in a minute, and I'll answer y'all's questions. Thank y'all so much. But when it comes to Madrimov, I think that the Crawford fans, especially after the troubling time that Crawford had, and I mean, you kind of expect it because Madrimov just has a troubling style. It's fine. But then the Crawford fans try to make him into something that he just wasn't. They try to make him into this, oh, he's the next Gennady Golovkin. And I was like, no, like he's not. And that's why when he fought Virgil Ortiz, he ended up losing that fight. And I thought that he ended up losing it in more dominant fashion than what he did against Crawford. Now, that does not mean that Virgil Ortiz is a better fighter than Crawford. I just think that Virgil Ortiz knew what Madrimov brought to the table more than what a Crawford did, because that was the first time we've seen, Madrimov in a huge fight. But, it was just kind of interesting because I've seen all these people try to put Madrimov on the Gennady Golovkin level and all those other guys. He's just down on that level. He's a very good fighter, but he also wastes a lot within his fights. He throws a lot of feints and doesn't have enough production. So, I mean, it just is what it is. That's why I also had to have him on my list. And to be honest with you, I also don't see him beating Jaron Boutsenis. I'm not 100% sure who else he would really beat that's complete A grade. And to this day, he still does not have a legit A grade level win. So that's why he also would have to be on my list. But let's see. Let me get a little bit more water here, guys. Anyway. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay, so I'll respond to Hollow Ninja second, I guess. So Mike Rodriguez says, do you think Martin McCauley can beat Zhang or the guy that just KO Zhang or Zhang, I think? So I'm going to tell you this. The guy that you're talking about, I believe, is Ajit Kabayel. I give Martin McCauley a very little chance against that guy. Ajit Kabayel is someone that I think that he's massively underrated. I think that he's someone that puts on a lot of pressure. He also is very skilled. He's very powerful, and he seems to have great stamina and doesn't seem to really wear out. I think that that's a very bad style for Martin McCauley, because I think that if you actually dare to go at him efficiently and effectively, that his overweight problem will start to show. Martin McCauley relies a lot on that kind of, boxing with the jab and the right hand. And I think that he's talented. I think if he were to fight someone like that of Ajit Kabayel, I think he would get stopped within about 6 or 7 rounds. That's just my personal view. It's not a good style for him. I think that he would completely outpace him. I think overall that he would wear out in the second half. And unless he were to catch Ajit Kabayel with something good, I don't see him really standing that much of a chance against him. Just my personal view. And Zhang, on the other hand, I think that he would have more of a chance against him. That's a harder fight to predict because, in all honesty, their style is somewhat similar. But if that fight were to happen, although I think that Bakoli as a boxer is probably slightly more talented, I might have to favor Zhang because neither of them have great cardio or stamina, and both of them rely more on accuracy than what they do volume. And basically, what the key has been to defeat that of a Zhang or a Bakoli has been that of volume. And when you have two fighters that aren't really volume fighters and they're more counter guys and accuracy guys, and they can't really do that much because if they do, they'll run out of stamina, then it's pretty much going to depend on who's more accurate, who might be more lengthy, who might be bigger, overall, and other certain things like that. I might even have to favor Zhang in that fight, but it would be tough. I would have to really research. I think that Bakoli is slightly more talented of the two, but Zhang is still a very good boxer. And if he hits Bakoli once, I think that there's a higher chance that he can knock out Bakoli more than that of the other way around. So to be honest with you, I probably would favor Zhang even slightly in that fight. But it would be very interesting because their styles are just so much the same in my personal view. I just think that Bakoli's a little bit more technical. But if he can't reach Zhang and Zhang can reach him, it's not really going to matter that much because neither of them have that great of stamina. And neither of them overall, neither of them, in my personal view, they don't have the type of style that would really for sure get them the victory, I think, over each other. So that's a 50-50 fight. I think Zhang would win because of his size and also his boxing ability. And they're similar, but I think the size would win Zhang today, just in my view. But we'll see. So let's see overall what Ninja says. He says Tank Davis dodging a lot of smoke. Okay, so Tank Davis is the most overrated fighter in all of boxing right now. Am I cutting out? Let's hope I'm not cutting out. Let me say it loud for y'all. In the back there, for those of you that didn't hear me, Gervonta Tank Davis is the most overrated fighter in all of boxing, and there's not a close second. And I'll explain why. Every fighter that you've seen for the past, I don't know how many years, that has been debated as number one or top 5 pound for pound, there's always been a discussion about how they haven't fought this guy and, they're overrated and blah, 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 and all sort of stuff. But at least Vasyl Lomachenko, at least he fought Rigondeaux. At least he fought Nicholas Walters. At least he fought Jorge Linares, guys that mattered when he fought them. Canelo fought a lot of guys that mattered. There's some debate about it. But listen, we all know he fought Lara, Golovkin, Callum Smith, Billy Joe Saunders. It's up to you. But in my view, he fought a lot of A-grade level names. Devin Haney, although I never put him as number 1 pound for pound, at least he fought guys like Lomachenko and fought guys like Regis Prograis and George Kambosos. He's called out guys like Teofimo Lopez. And, Devin Haney, in my view, has been highly avoided actually by certain fighters. But we'll talk about that here in a little bit. So my thing is this: even with other fighters that you want to debate maybe are not there or don't deserve it quite as of yet, like Inoue, like I can understand Inoue not being number 1 as of yet, but at least he fought Fulton, Tapalas, and MJ Akhmadaliev. Like all those fights were looked at as big level fights, especially Steven Fulton. And if he fights Junto Nakatani, that's going to be another huge one that you can add to the list. When I take a look at Tank, it's like, who has he ever really fought? It's like, I take a look at this man, and people were once upon a time debating him in the top 5 pound per pound. I don't think he was ever in mine personally, but he was within my top 10. I don't really see an argument for him anymore being within the top 10 pound per pound, unless you want to just debate that, it's because he's holding a title. Because who has this man fought? And I'll explain my point here in a moment. Hold on one sec. Give me a minute. So here's my point about Gervonta Tank Davis. I've not seen this man fight one name of significance ever. And I'm not claiming that he hasn't fought certain talented fighters. Ryan Garcia at the time was looked at as an A-grade level fighter, but we've seen how good he actually is. And in the first place, I mean, I don't think anyone ever took a look at Ryan Garcia and said, wow, like this is an A+ level fight. And no one ever said that about Ryan. Everyone knew the faults that he had. He stands up very tall. His chin is wide up in the air. It just is what it is. And Hollow Ninja just mentioned Pedraza. And Pedraza is a B-grade level fighter at best. Pedraza, every time he gets in the ring with an A-grade level fighter, even if they're smaller than him, he gets his ass kicked. So it just is what it is. So, I mean, him, I think the one for maybe 2 for sure. And I know what you mean, Hollow Ninja. That probably was the last time that he did something, especially against someone that maybe was looked at as even somewhat competitive. I agree with you. Or maybe Leo Santa Cruz, but we'll get into that here in a minute. So my point is this: the two best wins of his career are probably Leo Santa Cruz and Frank Martin, just in my view, just from a talent perspective. And Leo Santa Cruz is someone that, although he's a very good boxer, at one time he was top 10 pound per pound, he's very clearly not on the level of a Gervonta Tank Davis. And one could debate that he's a little smaller than Gervonta, although you could debate that they're around the same size if you wanted to. But Everyone knew that Leo Santa Cruz is not going to win that fight. Everyone knew that. So that's first off. Then he fights Frank Martin, a very good, fighter. Never been a champion yet, though, and we don't know how good he actually is. So the thing is that when we take a look at all the big names around his weight classes, who has he fought? Because he hasn't fought Devin Haney, he hasn't fought Regis Prograis, he hasn't fought Josh Taylor, he hasn't fought Teofimo Lopez, he hasn't fought Vasily Lomachenko, he hasn't fought, Shakur Stevenson. Who the fuck is the man fought? So I mean that's why I take a look at this man, and I've never seen a fighter that was ranked so high in the pound for pound list for fighting pretty much absolutely nobody, even when the talent was around there. Now, certain people, of course, can say in a way or Roman Chocolatito Gonzalez if they want to. That's up to you. But at least they were kind of fighting guys that were highly ranked within their weight class. Like at least Roman Gonzalez was fighting one Francisco Estrada at one point in time, who later on was kind of a big deal, and also, other guys as well. You kind of knew some of the guys he was fighting, and some of the guys that Tank is fighting, but it's like they're just not A grade. Isaac Pitbull Cruz is not A grade. Mario Barrios is not A grade. Rolly Romero is not A grade. Now, these guys did become champions because of the matchmaking of Al Heyman, and I think he did that on purpose to make Tank look better because he knows that Tank is his biggest star. But that being stated, are those guys like real A-grade level champions? No. And when you take a look at why they became champions, they pretty much were matched so perfectly in order to make Tank's record look better. And the reason overall why that is because, or how you can prove that, literally 2 out of 3 of those guys that became champions, actually all 3 of them, really, the reason why they became champions were because of title vacancies. Because at 140, Josh Taylor gave up most of his titles, and that left room for more champions. So then Rolly Romero moved up and took advantage of that opportunity. He got the title there, overall because Josh Taylor, and he fought like a 40-year-old, and I believe his name was like Ismael Barrasso. And here's the kicker. And I know that I'm getting passionate when I'm saying he wasn't even winning the fight. He wasn't even winning the fight against that 40-year-old. He was getting his fucking ass kicked. And then the referee, who clearly had the fix-in, stopped the fight way too fucking early when the guy got like 1 or 2 knockdowns against Rolly Romero, and Rolly Romero was counted as a champion because of that. So I mean, like, are you fucking serious? And then overall, so that ends up happening. Isaac Pitbull Cruz gets in there, completely whoops Rolly Romero's ass, which was completely predictable, overall. Then Isaac Cruz loses to that of Jose Valenzuela, someone who got knocked out by Edwin De Los Santos in 3 rounds. So, I mean, the thing is that, and then you have Mario Barrios. Like, he won a belt. I don't even know how the fuck he won a belt, to be honest. I think that, who did he beat? Like a washed up Yordenis Ugas? Because Ugas was never the same after Errol Spence. Then he has a draw over a 46 to 47-year-old Manny Pacquiao, who's been out for 4 years? 4 years. And the thing is like the Gervonta Tank Davis fans, they'll legit try to tell you that these guys are champions, that they're the weakest champions. And the reason why they're champions is because Al Heyman matched them up perfectly to make Gervonta Tank Davis's record look better. There's no other conclusion that I can come to other than that. And I know that certain people will say that that's a little bit of a conspiracy theory. I don't think it is, because I think it makes 100% sense. How is it possible that 3 of the fighters that Gervonta Tank Davis fights, you have them coincidentally, you get them in title matches overall and with title vacancies? Isn't that interesting? Across 2 weight divisions? Doesn't anyone else find that interesting? Mario Barrios, Isaac Cruz, Rolly Romero. So they all of a sudden can become champions because, it's very obvious that Al Heyman knew what he was doing with that. Just my personal view of it. But, it is what it is. And then Mario Barrios, he also had a draw against someone that I can't even remember his fucking name. Like, his last 2 fights have been draws. Anyways, God, I'm getting fucking so hyped over here. Hold on one sec. Oh my God. But yeah, no, that's my thing though about Gervonta Tank Davis, and that's why I say he is clearly and hands down the most overrated boxer in all of boxing. It's not even close. And I'm not saying that because I hate the man. I don't have any hate for any of these boxers. Like I say, I like to try to stay logical and objective here. But there's no other answer. You can't say another answer because every other fighter that I know of, whether you want to call them overrated or not, they have a big fight. Gervonta has been the only fighter in recent history that I can remember that has been debated as a top 5 pound per pound fighter, and he's not really had one career defining fight. And when I say career defining, I'm talking about like top 10 pound per pound potential, or at least fights that like you weren't kind of expected to win against like a true A grade level fighter. Maybe the only other one I can kind of think of is like Roman Chocolatito Gonzalez to a degree, maybe Terrence Crawford, but like, I mean, at least one thing I'll give about Crawford is this, is that, when he fought Gamboa, a lot of people expected Gamboa to win that. And I think Gamboa actually may have been the favorite in there. So I can't really even say that with Crawford. Sure, I can say that Crawford, in my view, was a decent amount bigger than Gamboa. And I don't think Gamboa was quite as good as, say, like, a Lomachenko or Mikey Garcia, in my view. But at least, like there was a lot of people that truly expected Terrence Crawford to lose that fight. And Gamboa was looked at as an Olympian. Well, not just looked at as one, he is one. But he also was someone that was looked at as one of the greater talents in all of boxing. I wouldn't claim that he was ever top 10 pound per pound or anything, but he was looked at as one of the greater talents in all of boxing. No one takes a look at any of Gervonta Tank Davis's opponents and says, wow, like, that guy would beat Lomachenko or beat this guy, beat that guy. There was rumblings once upon a time that Gamboa would actually beat Mikey Garcia. There was never any rumblings about any of the opponents that Gervonta Tank Davis ever fought. Like, wow, you know what? I think Leo Santa Cruz, I think that guy can beat Shakur Stevenson or Vasily Lomachenko. There was never anything about that. Everyone knew the peak potential that Leo Santa Cruz had, and same thing with Ryan Garcia. I mean, there may have been some people that said that Ryan Garcia can beat some of these other guys, but for a lot of us that knew what Ryan Garcia was actually about, none of us ever expected Ryan Garcia to go that far. And he's not even a champion. Like one of the biggest wins in Gervonta Tank Davis's career was over Ryan Garcia, and he's never even won a belt. And that's the thing why I have to say the biggest win in Gervonta Tank Davis's career over the most talented pedigree fighter, in my view, that he ever fought was over Frank Martin. And the man hasn't even won a belt. And the biggest fight in his career was over a man who never has even won a belt. So you got to let that sink in. That's why I say that Gervonta Tank Davis, he has to be hands down the most overrated. It's not close. And that's just my personal view on it. Let me get a little bit more water here, and then I'll read some of y'all's comments. Anyways, thank y'all so much, by the way, for tuning in. Whether we agree or disagree, don't matter to me. Just appreciate y'all being here. Thank you. Oh my God, guys, I'm so sorry for my throat today. Okay. So yeah, Hollow Ninja says I like Tank, but he do some lame stuff. Well, the thing is that he's just, and we're gonna talk about Devin Haney here in a minute too. After I read some of y'all's comments, because Devin Haney, I think, is one of the most overhated fighters in boxing. There's the term overrated, and then there's overhated. I really do not get the hate that Devin Haney gets. I think that he deserves a lot more respect than what people give him, to be quite honest with you. I understand that he's not the most entertaining fighter. I also don't think that he's number one pound for pound potential in terms of skills. And he did have that very poor performance over Ryan, but you gotta at least give that man his flowers and his props. That man has pretty much been able to get in the ring with everybody. Devin Haney gets the ultimate amount of respect from me. And what's interesting to me, and I don't want to get sidetracked too much here because I want to read you guys' comments, but what interests me is like it isn't even just some of the channels that someone would consider quote unquote anti-black. Like I get told, with certain channels that, you should review more of those types of channels. I'm not exactly sure what channels they're referring to because I've seen like the majority of them be LDBC and the media ones. But the thing is that even if you were to point to like certain quote unquote, channels that criticize a lot of black fighters, whether you think it's fair or unfair, like even the LDBC and the media channels seem to criticize Devin Haney quite a bit, which is surprising a little bit to me. Now, I do understand that a lot of those channels are probably Gervonta Tank Davis fans. So, I mean, like, when you talk about, like, Boxing Ego and some of those other guys, I mean, that's not really that much of a surprise. But it's like, it's just Devin Haney, for whatever reason, man, I don't know what beef he has with some of these guys. But, I mean, unfortunately, he gets a bad rap, and I don't think he deserves it whatsoever. But we're going to talk about that here in a minute. Anyway, but let's see. Kambosos fought all of them. He did. You got to give that to him. You got to give that to him. Fought Loma, fought Devin, fought Teofimo. You got to give the man his props. Let's see what my man Mike Rodriguez said. He said, off topic, realist, but do you think Prime GGG beats Crawford at 160? I believe he would have a great chance. Even with Crawford beating Canelo, styles make fights. It's kind of hard for me to predict because I'm not exactly sure how great Terrence Crawford would have been with those guys. With those guys at 160. I think that he kind of caught Canelo at not the best point in time in his career, but still a great point. It would have been interesting to see Crawford at his absolute best fight guys like Golovkin and Canelo when they would have been at their absolute peak at 160. So Golovkin at his peak was probably that's a hard one because it's hard to kind of decipher when Golovkin was at his absolute peak because the only I mean, he fought Danny Jacobs and Canelo. Those are really like the only main elite fighters that he fought. So it's a little bit hard to decipher. But I'll say like around when he fought Canelo the first fight and Danny Jacobs, those were probably his peak forms. I think also the rematch against Canelo as well. I think that Canelo probably was able to adjust, and I think that it confused him. I think that Crawford definitely is more skilled than Golovkin, I'll tell you that much, but I don't know exactly who I would have favored. I would have had to have seen Crawford at that division over a great length amount of time. To be honest, I probably would be able to give you more of an accurate answer, or at least in my mind. Of course, we would never know because that fight's never going to happen. But I would need to see kind of like what he would do against the Janabek. Like, you know what I mean? That's kind of what I would have to see. He did beat Canelo, but one thing I will state is this. Once again, I do think he kind of caught Canelo at a slower point in his career. Not a bad point, but a slower. But Crawford did show that he could retain weight well without really losing a lot of his qualities. And whether I think it's because of the snack program or not doesn't really matter because I also think he's a very talented athlete and boxer. So I think he would have had a great chance. And I think he would have given Golovkin a lot of problems. But I do think Golovkin definitely has better feet than Canelo, so that would have been interesting. That being stated, he does not quite have the upper body movement nor the maneuverability of a Canelo. So that would have been interesting. That would have been an interesting fight. I would have loved to have seen it. Who would I have favored? Assuming that Crawford looked as good as what he did in the Canelo fight, probably Crawford, but not quite sure. Not quite sure. That would have been a great fight. I would have loved to have seen that. But anyway, let's see. Mr. Classic Metal, he says, after Roach fought Ting to a draw, his fanboys started to claim that Roach is better than Shakur. No, yeah, man, I seen that. That's the thing, though. Like, you had so many of these channels. I remember after a Canelo performance or an Usyk performance or something like that, they would always indicate about how their performance wasn't that impressive and blah, blah, blah. But then when Tank had that draw against Lamont Roach, like, keep in mind, these are the same channels that would criticize Canelo Alvarez because he would move a fighter up one weight class. And Canelo's like, what, 5'7"? Like, he's not even a natural 168-pounder. And then when it comes to Gervonta Tank Davis, then they would turn around. He's at 135, and he would bring a fighter up a weight class like Lamont Roach, and they would say, well, Gervonta's really a natural 130-pounder anyway. And it's like, I understand that point. But if you're going to bring up that point, at least be consistent about it. So, that's the first thing. And then when he would lose to Lamont, or not lose, excuse me, but he would get a draw against Lamont Roach, all of a sudden they'd be like, well, Lamont Roach is better than what people thought, like all this other bullshit. But then when it comes to fighters that, they want to kind of put 6 feet under, then there's no excuses for them. So that's why I review certain channels as well. But yeah, no, there's no excuses for that for me. Lamont Roach, I think, is a legit talented boxer, but he was someone that lost to Jamel Herring also not that long ago. It's not like he has any humongous A-grade level wins in his career. He was moving up a weight class. Gervonta is allegedly supposed to be at a minimum top 10 pound per pound, debatably top 5 pound per pound. And, you get a draw against a guy moving up in weight, and you have one shot knockout power, and he outboxes you in a lot of those rounds, like, no, sorry, but no excuse for that. If that would have been Canelo or Usyk, or if that would have been a lot of other fighters, they would have had their ass handed to them on a platter. So anyways, let me get a little bit more water in here, folks, yo. Anyway, sorry. Oh my goodness. Okay. Let me read more of y'all comments, and then I'm going to also discuss who I think is a little bit more overrated. By the way, for those of you, once again, that recently came into the video, certainly put your personal opinions down below, because I want to see who y'all's most overrated fighters are, and I'll kind of discuss whether I think it's accurate or not. But yeah, we'll have fun in this one. But anyway, let's see. Mike Rodriguez says, Inoue fought Fulton. Oh, shit, it went up. My bad. Let's see. Inoue fought Fulton. That was looked at as a 50-50 fight, and a lot of people were saying Inoue was going to lose to Fulton because he was a slick black style. That's what I heard a lot of people say. For sure. And that's why, when you have some of these guys that say, for example, that Davis has a better resume than Inoue, how? It's like, who has he fought that's better than Stephon Fulton? There's not one fighter. And to be honest with you, you can debate that there's not a fighter better than MJ Akhmadaliev on Tank Davis's resume. Maybe Frank Martin, but it's like, at least MJ Akhmadaliev, he's also an Olympian, by the way, and someone that is legit talented, and he also won 2 belts. Marlon Tapales is someone that I also think is a legit A-minus level fighter. He proved that against MJ Akhmadaliev. Like, he can box. He kind of gets pushed under the rug because he's Filipino, and he kind of came out of nowhere, and he had previous losses. But that version of Marlon Tapales, he was not anything to fuck around with. Anyway, but yeah. Good Lord. Anyway. Okay. And Mr. Classic Metal says, a boxing ego dislikes Haney. It's because he's much more accomplished than Tank. And with boxing ego, it's very, very obvious. To be fair, I'm usually pretty good at reading in between the lines and seeing why people think the way that they do and like what's going on, but I have not reviewed like a channel, for example, that I have seen that fight, like he hates Devin Haney's guts, and I just have no idea why, is like Southpaw. Southpaw, of course, is a little bit unhinged as it is, but I mean, like, I seen like a video not too long ago from him because I was actually looking to do a Devin Haney video as of recent, and he hates that man's guts. Like, I can't understand why. Like, I don't understand the hate for Devin Haney. I can kind of understand maybe non-Black American fans and why maybe they won't like him, or like, the people that think he's not entertaining. We all kind of get those perspectives. But like the LDBC and new media, I'm like, unless you're a Gervonta Tank Davis fan, it's like, damn, like what would really have you in such an uproar about Devin Haney? But I would have to kind of see and analyze it myself. Because that could be. I have a feeling maybe what it might be, but I would have to I'll have to look at that myself anyway. But let's see. Mr. Jamal Lil Boyd, sorry man. Having a little tough time reading your name, but let's see overall this guy says. He says, I think Shushu, talking about Bruce Shushu Carrington, is a little overrated, and Andre Ward is definitely overrated in my opinion. So let's talk about both those fighters real quick. I was mainly talking about fighters that were overrated in the world of boxing today, like who are active. But if we're also going to go with fighters who are overrated of all time, we can talk about that as well. So Bruce Shushu Carrington, I think that he's very talented, but I think that, his skill set is slightly overrated at times. And I'm rooting for the kid because I think he's very talented. And I really want to see Inoue versus Carrington. I really want to see that. But his most previous fights, he has not been as impressive as what he once was. He's getting hit a lot more. He's going more to decision against guys that he probably shouldn't. I think he's very talented, but I think his skill set is like slightly overrated. Like, he wouldn't be on my top 10 list of overrated fighters or anything. But like, I can understand your perspective. I know where you're coming from. As for Andre Ward, Andre Ward, in my personal view, is a great fighter. I would even go as far to state that he's an all-time grade level fighter. The only thing I'll say about Andre Ward is this. Andre S.G. Ward was one of the most dirty bastards that I've ever seen in the boxing ring. And you can tell where he got a lot of his tactics from that other dirty bastard, Bernard Hopkins. Andre Ward said that some of his favorite boxers to watch growing up, I believe, are Floyd Mayweather and Bernard Hopkins. And I can see it. Now, Floyd gets kind of credited with being dirty. I think that the only thing that I've seen Floyd do that to me was somewhat dirty was kind of hold the opponent's head down and then hit him. That was kind of the only tactic that I ever seen that really was dirty from him. Andre Ward had Bernard Hopkins and Andre Ward, they had a multitude of dirty tactics. Like they would charge in, and there's videos on this. If you don't believe me, you don't have to believe me. You can take a look at the montages. He would charge in head first with his head like a battering ram. Both him and Bernard Hopkins, they would use this to charge head first, hit your head, hit whatever they could, cut open your eyes, whatever it is, and then tie you up so then you could not retaliate. So Andre Ward was a great boxer. He was very intelligent, very smart, great all-around boxer, one of the best of his era and one of the best of all time. He also was a dirty bastard. I'll tell you that much. He was a dirty fighter. He would low blow, he would headbutt, he would hit in certain areas where he probably shouldn't. He was a dirty motherfucker. I'll tell you that. He was Bernard Hopkins 2.0. That's really what he was. He was the improved version of Bernard Hopkins. That's really what Andre S.G. Ward was. So, great fighter, all-time great fighter in my view. Dirty fighter, absolutely. Depends on what you mean by overrated. Depends on where you rank him. In my view, Andre Ward is ranked highly on my list because he is a genius level boxer. Once again, dirty tactics, absolutely. But he is a great boxer and he defeated a lot of good names. Mikkel Kessler, Carl Frosch, Arthur Abraham. Chad Dawson was kind of weight drained, but, still decent. And of course, Sergey the Crusher Kovalev. So I give Andre a lot of credit, but definitely was one of the dirtier fighters in my view. So I'll claim that. But anyway, let me sit up, y'all. I might need to hold on. So I got this on my laptop and I'm trying to plug this in. Where are you at? I need my charger. Come here. Okay. Is it right here? Yeah. Okay. All right. Oh boy. All right. Let's see what oh, your boy Jay. Man, I'm sorry guys. It's fucking it's taking me overall I'm not taking me a little bit to decipher the names. Anyways, okay. Your boy Jay 15 says the hate for Devin Haney never really made sense. Dude gets in the ring with as many A-level fighters as a guy can in the late 20s. I agree with you, sir. And I have to give the man props. Now, the one thing I will say about Haney is that he does have flaws in his style. And I do think that he definitely was a bit of a weight bully at 135 and even at 140. But that's pretty much the furthest that my criticisms will go about him. You cannot criticize Devin Haney for really ducking a whole lot of fights out there. The one fight that I've seen Devin Haney not really be super interested in was the Shakur Stevenson fight, but that was it. He was interested in Lomachenko. He was interested in Tank. He was interested in Teofimo, who avoided him, by the way, multiple times. And I said it in my most recent video with David Benavidez that in my view, there's a difference between avoiding and ducking. I think that you can avoid a fighter without it being a cherry pick or a duck because at the time it just doesn't make any sense. Or, it makes sense to go another avenue at the moment. But for Teofimo, it didn't because who else was he really going to fight? And it was the perfect fight at the time. If a fight is perfect for that time and you still refuse it and it can take you to the next level legacy-wise and monetarily-wise, that, in my view, is what a duck is. And that's what Teofimo did, especially on the second occasion with Devin Haney. So that's what I have to say with that. And Teo's a great fighter as well. He's got some big wins, but he did avoid Devin Haney. Anyway, but no, he was one to get in the ring with Lomachenko. George Kambosos in his backyard. He was one to get in the ring with Tank. He was one to get in the ring with Brian Norman. He was one to get in the ring with everybody. Ryan Garcia. Devin Haney gets a round of applause from me, man. Now, of course, my last criticism would be that I do find the snack program suspicious, but I'm not really going to go too far into that because I think a multitude of boxers are possibly on PEDs anyway, and we just don't know. I think that all the Canelo's team is probably on PEDs, and that's not even sum up the speculation because we've seen all of them caught. So, it is what it is. Anyway, but let's see. Mr. Classic Metal says, and now Roach has been lured up to 140 to fight Isaac Cruz, a guy who's already used to fighting at that weight. Remember that Roach came from 126, and the fight is happening on a PBC card. You're right about that. I actually did not think about that because that just goes to show you that you got to consider every factor when making a fight prediction. That's actually a very good point that you brought up that I did not think about. For whatever reason, I thought that fight was happening at 135. I totally forgot that Isaac Pitbull Cruz is now fighting at 140. I don't think he's a natural 140 pounder, of course, but he has been fighting there. And Lamont he's got decent power, but it's not like extraordinary. So, I mean, it would be interesting to see. I think just on the surface, I probably am still favoring Lamont Roach, but if he is not active enough and the weight proves to be a problem, I mean, Isaac could easily win because he does throw a lot if he can catch you, and he loves to pin you up against the ropes. And sometimes Roach is someone that does not throw consistently enough. So that's a great point that you brought up. Actually, we'll see how that one ends. I'm not quite sure. But anyway, well, let's see. Roach is so dumb that PBC is playing him like a fiddle. I mean, it's possible. I mean, I can kind of see it from both angles because it's like it's very possible that they're trying to make Javante look better if Isaac ends up beating him, and then maybe Javante doesn't have to worry about him in a rematch or something like that, or they're trying to wear him down. But on the other end of things, Isaac Pitbull Cruz is a very well-known fighter. He's someone that has a lot of fans, especially after the Gervonta Tank Davis fight. He also has a very entertaining style. And I think that if Lamont fights him and does beat him, which he has a great chance to, in my personal view, his star power, in my view, would only rise. So actually, I don't mind Lamont Roach going for that fight. I think that is a decent opportunity. It is possible that the weight's a little bit high, but he is fighting the right fighter, in my personal view, for that fight. If it was someone like Teofimo Lopez, I'd be a little bit more worried. But Isaac Pitbull Cruz, I think that it's definitely a very winnable fight. But we'll see what happens there. Let's see. Your boy Jay, he's still talking about that. He's still talking about what's his name? Oh yeah, he's still talking about Lamont. No, not Lamont Roach. No, yeah, you are talking about Lamont Roach. My bad. He said, yeah, I saw the fight a second time. Deadass Tank won 4 rounds at most. He got gifted a draw. Honestly, I don't mind a draw. I thought that Lamont Roach at times could have took a little bit more charge, but Tank. The point is that Tank was not supposed to get a draw in the first place. He was supposed to win that fight. He was supposed to knock him out, and he didn't. Not only did he not knock him out, Lamont Roach probably showed the better boxing skills throughout the fight and actually hurt Tank more than what Tank did to him. That's what was kind of crazy. So that's why Tank, I mean, combined with his resume and him only being a two-weight division champion, and he really won one of those belts because it was like eventually given up. I mean, I'm sorry, but no. And then on top of that, you get a draw with a guy that moved up a weight class and already lost to like a B grade level fighter. No, dude, I'm sorry. Anyway, let's see. But this person says, I don't think Tank is overrated because skill for skill, he beats everyone. In my opinion, his mentality and lifestyle holds him back, but Tank at 50% still gave Lamont problems. Well, that's an interesting perspective. Well, first of all, I would need to ask you, like, what makes you think that Javante was at 50%? Now, here's my thing, because I think I can understand where you're coming to that. Where, like, Javante has put on more impressive performances, so maybe he didn't take him seriously unless there's an injury or something else I didn't hear about. But that's not the first unimpressive performance that I've seen out of Tank. And there's actually been several performances where they've not really been up to par. And I think eventually it just kind of caught up to him. Because even against Rolly Romero and Mario Barrios and Isaac Pitbull Cruz, none of his performances were really that impressive, to be quite honest with you. So I think Tank, although he is a very good boxer, I do think that he is overrated as a boxer. I mean, it is what it is. I think I can understand where you're coming from, my dude, but I do have to ring Javante Tank. I just my view, just so we're on the honest playing field, and I'm telling you my full opinion. Javante Tank Davis, in my view, is the most overrated fighter in boxing. I think he's talented, and I think that he has so much potential, but he just does not use it. And then when I take a look at his skill set, he's nowhere near a dominant performer as what people try to make him out to be. So that's why he has to be there for me. I mean, there's really several reasons why, but that's why. Anyway, but this next person's Alkins, okay. Virgil Ortiz is the most overrated. So he's not the only one to say this. I would say that this opinion is probably a little bit more popular within that of like the LDBC or new media channels. Is Virgil Ortiz, in my view, the most overrated? I definitely don't think he's the most overrated because I don't see Virgil Ortiz on like top 10 pound for pound lists or anything. And I don't see any boxing channels for like, so for example, Champ Side is a boxing channel that I've reviewed a couple of times. I remember before Duran Butzenis even had a belt and before he even fought anybody, Champ Side was putting Duran Butzenis top 10 pound for pound. And then he was saying, well, it's my list. Why are people so triggered about my list? And then this would be the same guy complaining that Lomachenko was getting called the Matrix and being ranked number 1 pound for pound. So my point overall is this, is that Virgil Ortiz, I don't think that he's massively overrated. I would understand if you were to call him slightly overrated because if people are starting to rank him in the top 10. But Virgil Ortiz, skills-wise, he has a great foundation of skills. Great defensively, great offensively, can fight somewhat within a multitude of ways. I think he has a lot of potential. The problem is that both him and Duran Butzenis, and this is why I've also been a little bit more silent on that, because they, I know that certain people put the blame on Ennis and certain people put the blame on Ortiz, but in all honesty, they both have kind of had moments where they could have took big fights and they just turned it down. Like, Duran turned down the Virgil Ortiz the last time I heard about it, and he claimed that, well, I'm going for undisputed. And it's like, okay, man, that's cool. Like, I respect you on it because you said that you were going to do that all along. And I don't think that you can criticize a man that says they were going to do this and go out for that and strive for their goal and then get mad at them for, wanting to accomplish that. No problem with that. I think that's fine. But then Duran Butzenis turns the fight down just to go up to 154 like 2 fights later and doesn't even unify the weight class. And it's like, what are you doing? Like what was that about? Like, that's just stupid. It didn't make any sense. So, I mean, unless he just was fine with unifying in the first place. But Duran Butzenis and Virgil Ortiz, in my view, but especially Duran Butzenis, they both have to be a little bit more future orientated, in my view, with their career, because they're not going to be young forever. And I think that Virgil Ortiz obviously has bigger names. I mean, he has Majimov, and a couple of other guys that are decent. So the only thing that Virgil Ortiz is missing is that he's just not a champion yet. He's got to get in the ring with guys like that one Russian there, Murtaza Aliyev, or whatever the fuck his name is. He has to get in the ring with Sebastian Fundora. That's really the only thing that Virgil's missing. Once he gets to that point, he'll be for sure top 20 pound for pound in my view. And, it'll take more to get in the top 10. But I would understand why you claim that Virgil is like slightly overrated, but I definitely don't think I can call him the most overrated. And the reason why I say that is because there's no list, even the quote unquote bias list that would be for Mexicans or like for Latino or non-black fighters. Maybe I'm not looking at the right channels or something or the right websites, but I don't see anybody that's putting him that high, maybe in terms of his skill set, but I mean, I think he has a very high skill set. So it's whatever. But anyways, so let's see. So this guy, so he says Inoue fought a lot of guys in the top 10 of their respective division. Okay, so let's talk about this very quickly because I actually really would want to talk about this. So I don't think that just because you fight someone with that, and by the way, if I'm not getting to your comments, it's because I'm like, I'm very, I don't mean to be long-winded, but I'm long-winded at times because I like to get every, detail in there. But I apologize for that. Anyways, my point is that, and I want to give you guys a lengthy response. So I'll get to your comment eventually, though. I'd never end the stream without getting to a comment eventually. So certainly put all your opinions down there for sure. I love that. Thank you all so much. But this guy says Inoue fought a lot of top 10 respected guys in their division. I don't think that just because you fight a guy in the top 10 though in your weight class, that it always means that it's a great win. Like, you know what I mean? Like, because how many of those guys do we really take a look at on Inoue's resume and just say, wow, like amazing win? Like, I think that Tapales is a great win. I think that's a massively underrated win. I think the Donaire win is like, it's like anywhere from B plus to A minus because Donaire kind of was going downhill, but it's up to you. The MJ Akhmadallah fight, obviously, you know, at least A minus. Steven Fulton, obviously A plus, probably in my view. But then you just take a look at it and it's like, well, is Jamie McDonald like really an A grade level win? You know, he's a respected fighter. Maybe you could debate it, but it's like, is he really? Like, is he really an A grade level win? Then you take a look at Emmanuel Rodriguez, and it's like, I don't know if I can rank him as A grade, you know. And I think if he was, that in a way probably would have not just knocked him out as like what he did in like 2 rounds, like you know what I mean. I understand that people might disagree with me on that, but that's just my view of it. And I do know that he defeated one of the Gary Russell brothers, but probably the weakest of the bunch, just in my view. But we'll talk about that later. You know, and he defeated some other guys, but just because, you know, the guys that in a way, in my view, the ones that really count in his career, you know, Donaire debatably, you know, Tapales for sure, Akhmadallah for sure, and Fulton obviously. And there might be one other name that I'm forgetting. You know, Lewis Neary you could debate as well. I think Lewis Neary you could debate as A minus as well. So in a way, at times can be underrated with his resume, and then at times can be a little bit overrated. It just depends on who you're talking about. But I don't think that just because someone is a champion or just because someone is top 10, that just automatically makes them great fighters. Like the Maloney brothers, for example. Take a look at them. I don't I think there's like Andrew Maloney and like Sam Maloney or something like that, or someone else. I don't think anyone would really debate that those guys are like true A grade level fighters. You know, just my personal view of it. So but in a way, definitely would have a better career, for example, than like a Javante. You know, it's just that he's very Terrence Crawford-esque, where he definitely has some great wins, but it's like you definitely want to see more. Like the fights that I want to see in a way in are Junto Nakatani, Jesse Bam Bam Rodriguez, Nick Ball, you know, who's that one Mexican fighter? At what the fuck is that dude's name? He's a Mexican fighter, only lost to Steven Fulton. Went to 126 recently. Why the fuck can I think of that cat's name? Um, I'll fucking I'll think about it eventually. Maybe one of y'all will think about it. But anyway, but let's see. Um, yeah, no. As far as accomplishments, he doesn't come close anyway. I agree. All right, so let's see. I gotta get to some of y'all's comments. But yeah, that's what I think about that. Anyways, so all right, so all Ken's all right, so what ZD says. He says Southpaw TV hates Devin Haney, his dad, and his family because him and the Haneys got into a nasty argument in the fall of 2022. I could see that. Southpaw just man, that guy is like so emotional. Like I've seen his videos before. That's one of the few guys that I have not reviewed because I'm like, wow, like this guy is off his fucking rocker. And you know, I'm not saying that maybe he's not a good guy in real life. He doesn't seem like necessarily a bad guy. But he does come across as very divisive and like willing to kind of get into conflicts. So I could easily see that. Plus I know he has a bunch of content that, you know, overall he's like met up with people and boxed him and all that other stuff. So yeah, no, Southpaw is someone that I could easily see being confrontational. And I mean, I definitely appreciate someone that is at least honest and you know, is at least going to stand up for what they say they're about. I at least have to respect Southpaw for that. But he's someone that, in my view, is a little bit too over emotional. Just my view of it. So I could easily see that. I wouldn't even be surprised if Southpaw was there and if they damn near got into blows. I could easily see that because Southpaw comes across to me as someone overall that might do that. But anyway, let's see. They hate Devin Haney because he has a father in his life, and a lot of the LDBC are jealous of that. I mean, that sounds fucked up to say, but to be quite honest with you, that you may not be completely wrong with that. I'm not going to claim that that's the exact reason. But there's a lot of people especially in certain communities that, especially minority communities, because unfortunately that's just where it happens the most. But you see it in every community where there's not a father in the household or certain parents, and they actually do resent them. Like there's been videos about one of the channels that I used to watch all the time was Chronicles of Judah 144. Great channel. He used to talk about how he believed that LeBron James and Kevin Durant, who were both raised by their mothers, how they had a little bit of resentment over Steph Curry because he was looked at as the leader of his particular team, Kevin Durant especially because they were on the same team, and he grew up with the father and had a different level of energy. And that sounds crazy, but I actually do think that there's a possibility that sometimes there is resentment towards certain people for that. Because they take a look at them and they say, do you think that you're too good for me and all sorts of stuff? And, you had to rely on your father and I had to do everything by myself. So, I mean, as crazy as it sounds, and I'm not going to rush to that conclusion exactly, but I wouldn't be surprised. I'll just state that. Anyway, but let's see. Mike Rodriguez says, I would like to see Inoue / Junto fight and Bruce / Rafael Espinoza guy fight winner and meet up. I don't know if Bruce Carrington will really be ready for an Espinoza fight. He hasn't even had a true fight against a true A-grade level fighter yet. Espinoza is probably the most difficult guy to fight there at the moment because he's so fucking huge. Like the guy's like 6'2" with like a 76-inch arm reach. The guy really shouldn't even be at the weight class. So I mean that's huge. But it could still be a great fight. Another fight actually that I would love to see in a way, and I'm coming out with a top 10 list, and this one I will for sure come out with because I only have 3 spots left on it. I completed 7 of them, and it's not going to be as long of a video. A fight that I would actually love to see in a way in at 126 would be Robeisio Ramirez. He's not someone that I would say is like an A+ skilled level fighter, but he is an A-grade level fighter in my personal view. He is a legit Olympian. He beat Shakur Stevenson in the Olympics and won gold. And he also gave Rafael Espinoza hell within that first fight. And one could debate was winning it until kind of the final rounds. So that'd be a hell of a fight. There's so many fights at 126 for Inoue that I'd absolutely just love to see. But anyway, let's see. Mike Rodriguez says, to me, Ward kind of retire early. I believe that Bevo would have beaten Ward. So I'll address that because there's been so many comments about Ward like avoiding Bevo and better Bev. And I think it's a little bit unfair because he fought Kovalev, who was looked at as the best at the time. And I think Ward just was kind of done with it. I think he wanted to retire. And I think that he thought that he did everything that he needed to. That being stated, because his resume is not quite as long as some others, yeah, it might affect his legacy a little bit. He didn't fight Adonis Stevenson, which is really unfortunate. And I've also stated this because, Dante is one of these guys that will, of course, criticize non-black fighters for not fighting black fighters. But then when it came to Andre SOG Ward, his legacy is, tremendous, even though that's basically all he fought. Like, he never fought any elite black fighters. He fought Chad Dawson, but I really don't count that win because Chad Dawson, I believe, never fought at 168 before, and he was drugged down there. So to me, that's a weight drain that, like, really would matter. You know what I mean? Anyway, but let me drink a little bit more water. But I've already addressed this. Ward is someone that I think is a great fighter. I think it's a little bit unfair to claim that Better Beeve and Bevo were avoided by him because he fought everyone, in my view, that he needed to, at least at the time, other than like Adonis Stevenson. But of course, if he would have stuck around and beat Bevo and Better Beeve, it would have looked a lot better. So I understand what you mean. But I still think Ward is an all-time great fighter. I do think he's dirty, for sure. But, is what it is. Anyway. Let's see what this guy says. He says, I think Haney gets a lot of hate because of the white boy comment and how he was trying to sue Ryan when Haney and his dad were literally talking about killing Ryan in the right hand. That's definitely a part of it. I think that excuse me. I think that rubbed people the wrong way, but I don't really have a problem with Devin Haney suing Ryan because he was caught on PEDs. But of course, If you're talking about killing someone in the ring and then you sue them, then yeah, it's not going to look super great. You're going to kind of look like, a bitch kind of in that regard. I understand. Man, I wish we could add UFC fighters onto this as well. We might actually add UFC fighters onto this. I may actually add UFC fighters onto this because a fighter that really rubbed people the wrong way, including me, and I'm not someone that oftentimes admits like when a fighter annoys me. But Jamal Hill from the UFC is someone that annoyed me quite a bit. And off topic just a little bit because I know we're talking about boxing, but like, so this dude Jamal Hill, once again, um, this man ended up getting a title shot, I believe. What ended up happening was that Yuri Prohaska in the UFC, he ended up getting a title shot over Glover, who beat Jan Blachowicz, who was the reigning champion. They had this tremendous fight, and Yuri eventually stops him in the fifth round. Then Yuri tears his shoulder, and Jamal Hill ends up getting a title shot when he's literally beaten nobody. And then he's like number 6 or 7 in the weight class, gets a title shot over a Glover who was just tore to pieces by Jamal Hill. And then Jamal Hill gets an injury. So after that fight, he has to relinquish it. Then it's Yuri Prohaska and Alex Pereira who end up fighting for that title. And then Jamal Hill ends up bitching about, well, I'm the real champion. These guys are fake champions and frauds and all this other stuff. And the only reason why they're title holders is because I was injured and blah, blah, blah. And, maybe one could just take a look at it like, okay, he's being confident. But it's like, dude, first of all, you got a gift like title run. You weren't even supposed to get that in the first place. You didn't beat anybody to get that. And the only reason why you got the title in the first place is because first of all, you didn't even win it off anybody. You won it because Yuri Prohaska literally had a torn shoulder and he had to relinquish it. So then after that, Jamal Hill fights Alex Pereira, gets his ass knocked out in round 1. He makes 17 different excuses about how Alex Pereira apparently cheated and, waited for the ref and all that bullshit. Then he goes even into super bitch mode. He approaches Alex Pereira at the gym, claiming about how he wants a rematch, how he would whoop his ass anytime, anywhere. Then Alex says, okay, dude, let's get inside the cage. Let's spar. And he declines to do it. And he throws the gloves on the ground. Like, how much more of a bitch are you really going to look like to the public? Then if that isn't enough, he talks shit on Yuri Prohaska and he talks shit on Khalil Roundtree and he loses against both of them. And once again, I'm not someone that holds a whole lot of emotion towards any fight or anything like that. I must say, even for myself, as someone that does not admit of loving to see certain people get their ass kicked, that was probably one of the few times that I really loved to have seen a fighter get their ass kicked on a multitude of occasions, because that was just ridiculous. But anyway, but let's see. But anyways, back to boxing. Sorry, I know that I know that fucking was a little bit off topic, but anyway, man. All right, let's see. Fuck, man, where was I even at? All right. But yeah, I understand what you mean, Mike. Mr. Classic Metal says we do not know whether Tseng beats everybody skill for skill because he has not fought any top level opponent. I agree with that. Fighting lower level opponents creates that impression that he can. Exactly, which is why for a very long time I did not put Crawford at the number 1 pound per pound spot. My thing is this: you have so many of these guys that are very easy to criticize a fighter because they have not fought the level of competition, but then they'll put their favorite fighters up there, no problem, even if they have not fought the level of competition. So Dante for years would just go on about this stuff about how Crawford was getting blackballed and all sort of bullshit. And it's like, dude, the best opponents that he fought before Sean Porter were Victor Postal and Gamboa. And those guys were beatable by like multiple A-grade level fighters. It's not like they were like the cream of the crop of multiple weight classes. Like, you know what I mean? So it's like, that's why I have to see you against the best level of competition. But then when it came to Vasily Lomachenko, he has a problem with him being ranked, top 5 pound per pound too early because he wasn't fighting level of competition. So it's like, okay, so does competition matter to you or only when it comes to the fighters that you don't like? So that's what I mean. But anyway, but I agree with you there. Let's see. Mike Rodriguez says, you got to put emotions to the side and give credit where it's due, but I agree with that. But some people can't do that. Yeah, I agree. And you know what? Even me, sometimes I get a little bit emotional myself. But in my fight predictions, though, no, I don't try to do it in my analyzations whatsoever. There are certain fighters or athletes that annoy me, fan bases for sure, that definitely annoy the hell out of me sometimes. But yeah, when it comes to analyzing things, uh, especially from an impartial or an objective point of view, yeah, I always keep my emotions out of it. That's the best way to analyze it. So I agree with you. Um, so let's see what Mr. Classic Metal says. Tank will never have that rematch against Roach. That ship has sailed. The PBC is using the same formula they applied when Rolly fought Barrasso. They robbed that old man in plain sight. I mean, it's possible. I wouldn't be surprised if they're trying to, and they did rob Barrasso. Listen, I claim that the Parker versus Worley fight, in my view, was a bad stoppage, which in my view it was, but it wasn't like a terrible stoppage. Like I can see how that fight could be stopped. The Barrasso versus Rolly fight was an absolutely fucking horrendous stoppage. Like it was so clearly fixed overall because Rolly was getting his ass kicked, and Al Heyman said, "Fuck, we really need Rolly to look good in this fight," and they did not expect him to really pull off the upset in that fight. They said, "Here's a 40-year-old. You're gonna get a title for this," and he was losing the fucking fight. So they had to pull the plug on that once he got hurt. That was clearly one of the most fixed fights that I've seen. I agree with that. Clearly, that's such horseshit. Um, anyways, but let's see. All right. Uh, let's see. Your boy J15. He says Tank is basically the black slash criminally inclined version of Mikey Garcia, but he manages to be even more risk averse than Garcia. Thank you, sir, for saying that. Thank you. Finally, someone gets on Mikey Garcia's ass the same way that I have been for years. Mikey gets literally, unless you're like a Lomachenko fan, he gets almost no criticism from anybody. Like this guy somehow slips under the fucking radar for criticism. And I think the reason why is because no one ever really had a problem with him because he wasn't ever really a main threat. Um, excuse me. Hold on one sec. For a fighter, excuse me. Sorry, y'all. Sorry. For a fighter to be highly criticized or hated by certain people, more than likely they have to be used in an argument against some of their favorite fighters. And Mikey wasn't ever really used in those conversations other than that of Lomachenko. So that's why the LDBC and the media, they have no problem with Mikey because they never used Mikey against guys like Haney or Tank or anything else like that. So that's why Mikey slips under the radar because pound for pound wise, he was nowhere near as much of a threat as guys like Canelo or other guys like that because he never fought anybody. He could have fought Gamboa. He could have fought Linares. He could have fought Lomachenko. He could have went back down to 140 and fought Haney and some other guys, and he didn't. So Mikey, excuse me, although certain people, they'll use the term cherry picker, Mikey was a legit cherry picker, and he was a great fighter. He was someone that had legit A-grade level talent. I think that he was an A-plus level fighter, but what does it matter for if you're not wanting to get in the ring with the best? So, his career, although a great fighter, he went out with a whimper. I'm sorry, guys. I'm going to have to get water real quick because my throat is killing me. I'll be right back. Hold on one sec. Put down some of y'all's overrated fighters, UFC or boxing, and I'll discuss when I get back. Hold on one sec. All right, guys. I'm back. Oh my goodness. Okay. Whoo. Fuck. Oh my gosh. Sorry, guys. I've been fucking a little bit sick like this past fucking week. Seems like I'm always sick. Anyways, all right. So let's see. EB3437 says, "You just turned to subscribe, brother. Keep the grind up." Thanks, man. I'm trying. I'm trying to get into other content as well, as I've been saying. But there's been so much in my personal life. Nothing like bad or anything, but like just getting shit, moving to the next step, moving or stuff like that. So it's like you know, life gets busy, and yeah, that's why I'm saying I'm probably gonna start doing more like different content once I have time and can actually edit in like December, January, stuff like that. Just but right now there's so much on my plate that I have to take care of. But yeah, always gotta do videos for y'all. Thank you. Let's see. I never even seen Virgil on a top 10 pound for pound list. Yeah, well that's why I said that I can't really have him as like super overrated because it's like by what dimension? Because it's like I've not seen him anywhere. You know what I mean? So it's like anyway. Um, but Ally of Darkness says, "Dang, I'm late." No, you're all good, brother. Don't worry about it. Mr. Classic Metal says, "Fundura is another one of those guys who's carefully maneuvered through dangerous waters by that jackass Lukovic. He dropped the belt to avoid Zayas to fight a guy he already defeated." To be honest, I don't know enough about that, but you could be right about that. I would have to see. Let me talk about the 154-pound weight class really quick. Um, so, where am I at right now? Sorry. So the champions there, from what I know, are like Murtazaliev, Xander Zayas, and Sebastian Fundura. Um, to be honest with you, I don't even think any of the champions there are the most talented fighters there. I think that Duran Bucenis and Virgil Ortiz are probably the two best fighters there. And to be honest with you, I think there's a chance that Israel Madrimov would even defeat some of those guys. I don't see Xander Zayas lasting that long. I think he's talented, but he does not have enough power, nor does he have a good enough defense, in my view, or enough ability to really hold on to that belt for long. I think that he definitely is the most talented Puerto Rican fighter I've seen within a multitude of years, but it's not like, in my view, he's going to be like the next Miguel Cotto or something. You know what I mean? So I wish the best for him because anyone that knows me knows that I grew up watching a lot of Puerto Rican and Cuban fighters, and I always support those guys. But I don't personally see him lasting long. Murtaz Aliyev, I don't really know how good he is in the first place. He had that one great performance over Zoo, but I always thought Zoo was a bit stiff and not really as great as what people made him out to be in the first place. So I don't know how good he actually is. We'll see. I would actually love to see Zayas versus Murtazaliev. I think there's also that one new black fighter from Germany. I think I don't remember his name. I have not watched him, but I think he's a champion there. So we'll see. We'll see. The 154-pound weight class right now is very interesting. Anyways, Ally of Darkness says Hope Tank has to be mentioned. Oh, he was mentioned throughout a lot of this video, brother. Yeah, I've already stated this once again. Anyone who wasn't around earlier, Gervonta Tank Davis, in my view, is the most overrated fighter in all of boxing. I do not think it's close. Just my personal view of it. But anyways, if anyone wants me to go through the reasons why again, I'll make it a lot quicker because I want to get to other ones as well. But anyways, Inoue still somewhat young though. I believe he will get to guys like Junto Espinoza. He said Burst, but of course he meant Bruce Carrington, Nick Ball, and even Bam. I believe he will at least fight 3 or 5 of those guys. Honestly, I would love to see him fight every single one of those guys. Like I said, there are 10 fighters that I want to see Inoue fight. I came out with a list as of recent. I'm actually also going to tell you guys this. If Fulton legit becomes a 3-weight division champion, because he's fighting Foster next, I believe, right? I think it's actually on the next upcoming card. If he actually becomes a 3-weight division champion, I actually would not mind an Inoue versus Fulton rematch. Because I think there would be appeal to it because Fulton would be looked at as a little bit improved than someone that became a 3-weight division champion. There'd be a lot on the line for both fighters. Inoue could possibly become a 6-weight division champion if he's able to win at 126 and also 130. A lot of people would be wondering if Fulton could win. So, I I don't think he would, but it still would be very interesting. You never know. So, anyways, I see Hitman Sports here. What's up, my G? I see you. Let's see who else. So in a way, the only fight. Okay, so I will say this: the only fight that I'm not super hot about for Inoue in a way is I almost said Rafael Espinoza. It's what's his fucking name? Is it Rafael Espinoza? I don't think it's Rafael Espinoza, right? Or is it? Maybe it is Rafael Espinoza. You guys know what the fuck I'm talking about. The fucking skyscraper at 126. I mean, that's the only fight that I'm really not super hot on with in a way because, and I understand that certain people are like, well, if guys like, Crawford can do this, and if other guys like this can do that, and it's like that is understandable, but this is a different type of task. And I'm not claiming at all that Espinoza is as skilled as a Canelo. I am not claiming that. But when you're fighting a fighter that A, has power, B, has great skills for the weight class, C, you're not even of that natural weight class of the one below it, and then D, the guy's fucking humongous. Like, he's 6'2" with a 76-inch arm reach. It is humongously large. And I mean, Inoue can do it because he's a great fighter, but it just kind of gets to a point where it's like, damn, like when is too much a little bit too much? I mean, because he's even bigger than 130 pounders. So it's like that's a fight that I don't know about that one. I do want to see the fight. Don't get me wrong, because he is talented. But the fights that I would want to see probably before that are like, I don't think the Bam Bam Rodriguez fight is going to happen immediately. I think that's going to happen way later on down the line if it does. But of course, obviously, Junto Nakatani. That's the fight that's got to happen next. Nick Ball is a fight that I would love to see. Robeisy Ramirez. There's this other Mexican fighter there, man, that fucking fights there. He's a champion there. What the fuck is his name? What is that dude's name? No, I got to look this up because this is going to kill me. Hold on. What's this guy's name? Hold on, folks. Sorry about that. What the fuck is this guy's name? Let me look up Steven Fulton because I know that Steven Fulton fought him. Where is it at? Angelo Leo. There we go. Angelo Leo. I would love to see that fight as well. I think that's a tremendous fight as well. I think that's an A-grade fight too. Anyways. But let's read a little bit more. Mr. Classical says, as far as accomplishment goes, Tank does not come close to Inoue. Technically, I would have to agree with that, and not just in terms of belts, but also in terms of resume. And I don't think that Inoue has as good of a resume as what some of his fans try to say that he does. But at the end of the day, at least he has that fight over Fulton, where it was looked at as a fight that Inoue could really potentially lose. I don't think that Gervonta's ever really been in a fight like that when he was at his peak. So I have to, and I'm not saying like there's not fights where people are like, well, this is dangerous. I'm talking about a fight to where, Crawford versus Spence, Inoue versus Fulton, Lomachenko versus Reagan. Excuse me. Who else? Fury versus Usyk. Those are the fights that I'm talking about. Excuse me. Anyway, Tank Davis will obviously win this fight. Is too easy for him. I'm actually not sure which fight you're referring to, brother, because it actually says Cindy Taufa. Maybe your girl. I apologize. Either way, brother, sister, whatever you are. I don't know about that one because I don't really even know who the fuck he's fighting next. He was supposed to fight Jake Paul next in an exhibition somewhat, but he fucking pulled out of that. So we'll see. Hitman Sports Media says Ward, I think, would have beat those guys anyway. I assume that you're talking about Beterbiev versus Bivol. That would have been interesting. I would have loved to have seen them fight those guys because I do think they were probably better than what a Sergey Kovalev was. And Ward had fucking problems with Kovalev. I thought the first fight that he lost very slightly by one round, but they kind of gave it to him because he was the A side, and it was a very close fight as well. Then the second fight, of course, he beat him. I would probably favor Ward by a little bit as well, but you never know. Would have been very interesting, but I probably would have favored Ward to a slight degree. But it's just unfortunate to see him retire so early because you just would have wanted to see more out of him. But anyway, let's see. Classic Metal says Ward had some nagging physical issues, so his retirement is understandable. On the other hand, he did leave a lot of food on the table, no undisputed at 168 nor 175, which hurt his legacy. Definitely to a degree. Like, he can't probably be on the same guys like Crawford and some other guys like that, although he is a phenomenal fighter. But anyway. Let's see. Celestial Being says, hey, dude, Gervonta Davis versus Keyshawn Davis. Both aren't facing threats anyway, so face each other. Virgil Ortiz versus Conor Benn. UK versus Mexico. I would actually love both of those fights. There's no fucking chance that Tank Davis versus Keyshawn Davis happens. Like, there's no fucking chance. There, I'm sorry, no fucking chance. I think Keyshawn would be willing to have it, but Javante, no, I'm sorry. And I'm not someone that tries to be like so negative on potential fight opportunities, but when it comes to Javante, it's like there's just been no proof that he's been really willing to fight those guys. And it's not like he's young, you know. It's not like there's a reason to not fight these guys anymore. You're a fucking huge star. There's no reason to not fight some of these guys, and you're just not fighting them. I mean, it's whatever. But we'll see. But anyway, I would actually love to see Virgil Ortiz versus Conor Benn. That'd be a tremendous fight. that would be fireworks. I'd love to see that. Anyway, Allied Darkness says Hill very much was one of the worst champions in UFC history. I agree completely. I think he's talented, but he was given one of the easiest paths to a title shot in UFC history. We'll talk about overrated UFC fighters as well. I might either do a separate video on that, or we might we might just do it this one too. I don't know. I'm having fun here. And Mike Rodriguez says Alex Pereira is a monster. No, that dude is amazing. I've stated this. Alex Pereira, in my personal view, is basically the current day Chuck Liddell. He's beaten several champions, very powerful, a little bit stiff, not someone you would claim has the most skills of all time, just comparative with any UFC fighter, but he's right there. And for the amount of time that he does it, he's really phenomenal. So he's someone, I mean, beating Jamal Hill, Magomed Ankalaev, Sean Strickland, Israel Adesanya, Jan Blachowicz, and I think there might be one other. Oh yeah, Yuri Prochazka. How the hell can I forget Yuri Prochazka? Dude's a fucking beast, man. Yeah, he's a monster. Jamal Hill's a walking now. Nah, man, for real. I didn't know you were streaming. Yeah, man. Thank you so much for tuning in, my G. Thank you. Yeah, man. It kind of just comes out of nowhere. I don't really announce it. Sorry. I would, but it doesn't seem like a lot of people see my posts, so like I just don't do it. Mr. Classic Metal says one guy who has displayed top level skills consistently is Usyk. I agree with that. He's done so in the WBSS tournament where he fought real competition and he fought legit opponents at heavyweight. No room for doubt. I agree. Usyk, in my view, is on that level of guys like Crawford and certain guys like that. I think that he's debatably up there in the GOAT conversation, at least in, you know, I'm not going to say that he's like on the same exact level with guys like Mayweather and guys you would consider the number one of all time, but like he's in the realm. Like, you know what I mean? He's right there. Because what he did by beating not just AJ, but Fury, I could understand him beating AJ because AJ is a bit stiff. He's someone that can be hurt, and he's someone that, although I do think he's skilled as a heavyweight, he's not someone that's like, you know, a Lennox Lewis or something like that. But when he beat Fury, that was something else. And AJ, excuse me. Sorry, excuse me one second. I gotta take water. Whew. Whew. I apologize for that, folks. My bad. But when he beat Tyson Fury, that really put him on another level. Because that basically would have been like Evander Holyfield beating the Lennox Lewis of his day. And Fury, you know, he can be overrated at times, but he also is a very skilled boxer. He can fight in any way that he wants to. He's got good power, good speed, good stamina, was way bigger than Alexander Usyk, has a very high level fight IQ for a heavyweight. And Usyk was able to beat him. Like, that is something that I've never seen another fighter do, where you could debate that they were 2+, like A+ level fighters, and the fighter that was like, what, 30 pounds lighter and not as lengthy by like several inches in both height and reach, and he beat him. That was something that I've never seen before. So Usyk gets all the props from me. Anyway, but let's see. Yeah, what's up, B Wayne? What's up, dude? Nice to see you here. Ezekiel Lopez says, plus Mikey lost to Spence, and Spence was their favorite guy back then, so no need to shit on Mikey for LDBC. Yeah, if anything, that actually is a reason to uplift him. That's a very good point. Someone says, man, I'm sorry, man. I try to pronounce you guys' names. Lolly Tysus or whatever it says. He says, just tune into the stream. I don't know if you've spoke about Virgil Ortiz yet. Where do you rank him pound for pound? I don't rank Virgil Ortiz in my top 10 pound for pound. I don't think you can, just on my personal perspective, you can't be a top 10 pound for pound fighter if you've never won a belt before. That's why I didn't rank Jerome Butzenis there. But someone mentioned this before. I don't think Virgil's overrated unless you were to put him like in the top 10 pound for pound. I think he can be top 20, top 30, because I think you can be top 20 pound for pound and not have a belt, but you can't be top 10 because top 10 is just, it's a different level. So Virgil, I think, is a great fighter. I think we need to see more out of him. I think I need to see him against the champions of 154. I would love to see him fight Fundora or Duran Butsenis or some of the other guys. But in order for him to officially, for Virgil Ortiz to break my top 10 pound per pound list, because he did beat Madrimov, but I don't think Madrimov is someone that is just going to automatically put you in the top 10, even if you win a belt. If Virgil were to for sure be on the top 10 pound for pound list, he'd have to beat someone like a Duran Butsenis or something like that, or get 3 belts at 154, or completely unify the weight class. That's what he'd have to do for me. But he's around the top 20 for me. I'm very impressed with Virgil Ortiz. I always have been. I think he's a very talented fighter. I would love to see a Duran Butsenis versus Virgil Ortiz fight, but they both have kind of turned it down a little bit in the past, and they both are a little bit kind of in free fall. But I guess they have time. They're a little bit younger, but still, it would still be nice to see. I actually do not blame Virgil Ortiz for wanting the Spence fight. I know to a lot of people that sounded like a duck, but the reason why I claim I don't mind it is because they're both from Texas, and I think Virgil probably wanted that fight a while ago or probably dreamed about it. So that actually, in my view, wasn't that bad. But of course, obviously, Duran Butsenis would be better at the moment because Errol Spence just, ever since Crawford beat the living shit out of him, he's literally not fought again and been irrelevant. So whatever. But yeah, Mr. Classic Metal says, Mikey was very carefully managed. Lomachenko stated on camera that he wanted to fight Linares and then Mikey, but then Mikey moved up to fight Spence, claiming that Lomachenko took too long. Thank you, sir, for stating that, because so many people have stated this bullshit that Lomachenko turned the fight down against Mikey, and he did. But the reason why he turned the fight down was because he had a known torn shoulder after the Linares fight, and he said, I'm not ready for Mikey yet. I need a tune-up fight, and then I'll be ready for him afterwards. And Mikey, went out of that weight division and said, oh, okay, well, I'm going to go up to welterweight, overall and fight that guy and relinquish my title. It's just complete bullshit. Mikey did that to avoid Lomachenko after the fact, and he knew that if he fought Spence and if he beat him, he'd be on top of the world. But what he also was thinking was that if I fight Spence and get the shit kicked out of me or lose, I can just claim that I was never the same again after that fight. So if I do, get forced in the corner with Lomachenko, then I can just claim I wasn't the same. And Kelbrook kind of thought the same thing with Golovkin and Spence. Like that's what those fighters, that's what their mentality is. But because they think about the excuses later on as well. Anyways, that way the losses don't look as bad. But I agree with that. Mike Rodriguez says, you still going to do movie content? Yeah, no, I'm going to do video game content and movie content and other stuff as well. I said that a while ago. The problem is, man, is that I can't do any right now. I'm very meticulous in a lot of my work, and I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, so that doesn't help things either. But I like to put every ounce of my heart into what I do, especially with pieces of art that I like. So I will be doing that. I just won't be doing it right now. But I will be doing top 10 lists and our stuff like that. Like I said, that'll be coming in December and January. I also need to look at editing software as well and kind of see what the best one is, because I'm working on Canva right now, and it's good. But the problem is that I can only do it on my phone. I can't do it on my laptop, and it's good, especially for basics. I get it. It's very intuitive, but it just takes a long time. So that's the problem. But I will be releasing one, especially after the NOA fight, because I got one working on that. He says, hey man, we appreciate the dedication, but don't cough your lungs out for us. Yo, man, I'm sorry about that. No, my voice is actually better now. My voice is actually fucking better. Overall for this, but no, I'm doing this because it's fun. Thank you so much though. Overrated boxing, probably Prime. Make Tyson for Mike Tyson for boxing. I agree. And for UFC, I'd say Colby Covington. That's not a bad option. Colby Covington is someone that was very talented, but it's a little bit hard to decide for him because he just didn't fight a lot of prime names. He did beat Rafael dos Anjos, but it was kind of when he was over the hill a little bit. Still very good, but a little bit over the hill. And Rafael dos Anjos, in my view, although he was a very good 170 pounder, it's not like he was ever gonna threaten for the title there. He kind of was out of his element there. So I agree. And Mike Tyson, I mean, definitely. I mean, And listen, I grew up as such a big Mike Tyson fan. I fucking worshiped the guy when I was a teenager. The problem is he lost pretty much every big A+ level fight in his career. I mean, the criticisms that people will lay upon guys like Canelo Alvarez or other guys like that, or I mean, whoever else you want to put certain things on there, but fighters that are looked to lose quote unquote every big fight allegedly. That was actually Mike Tyson, because other than Michael Spinks, it's like who the man beat. He didn't beat Holyfield. He didn't beat Lewis. He didn't beat Buster Douglas, and he literally got stopped like in every single one of those fights. That's the thing. It's like that's why when you have these people that say Mike Tyson, no one beats a prime Mike Tyson, Alexander Usyk is not as good as Mike Tyson. I'm like that doesn't make any sense. it just doesn't. But anyway, you think Imam Katiev has a future at 175? I think he's definitely a threat for oh my god. Okay, so oh man. Okay, you just opened up a can of worms. We're gonna talk about another overrated fighter here. David Morrell. Anyways, let's talk about Imam Katiev first, because that's the guy who just lost to David Morrell, in my view, in a very controversial decision. But let's get into it. Imam Katiev, I think, is very talented. I thought that he won that David Morrell fight. I definitely think he has a future. I don't know if he'll beat Better Beaver Bivol or that of David Benavidez, but he definitely has a future there. I would love to see him fight higher level competition and then see where he goes. So keep commenting, you guys, because I am going to read your comments. Let's now talk about my next overrated fighter in boxing, David Morrell. This fighter, I don't know why. Well, I know why. Because people take a look at somebody and they kind of expect, because of certain past archetypes and certain things like that, oh, David Morrell's from Cuba. He's an Olympian. He comes from the Cuban boxing school. He must be this slick boxer. But if you watch him fight, that's not what he is. He's not someone that's a slickster. He'll have slick moments, but he's not this major slickster. He's this guy that will pressure you and kind of throw certain punches over the top. He'll do the high guard, and if he can't get certain offense off, he has a big problem. So there were so many people that I seen that were like so surprised that Morrell wasn't fighting slick against David Benavidez, and it's like because he's not slick. He's not someone that's a slickster. David Benavidez, although he does not look as pretty, say quote unquote, on the surface with his boxing style, he's more slick and has a better defense than David Morrell. And that was one of the fight predictions that I got right to an absolute T, because I seen what David Morrell was, and he's someone that is talented. Don't get it twisted, but he really should have lost that Imam Katiev fight. That's A. And B, the fight against David Benavidez, in my view, was not really that competitive either, which is pretty much what I had predicted. I'm not quite sure, to be honest with you, if David Morrell can even 100% beat someone like a Callum Smith. I'm not sure, to be honest with you. I was very impressed with Callum Smith's performance over Joshua Buatsi. I'm not 100% sure if David Morrell can beat Callum Smith. So I'm going to be curious. But he's also one of my most overrated boxers in the world today. Talented, yes. As good as what a lot of people claim that he was, no. People completely misdiagnosed his skill set. I mean, it really was ridiculous. But anyway, so Mr. Classic Metal says, Zayas is younger than Ortiz, but he already has a unification bout scheduled, whereas Ortiz has been a pro for close to 10 years, but he has 0 title fights. No, that definitely is a point that is going to be very, very relevant, and that's very unfortunate to see, which means that Ortiz is going to have to get in a title fight within that of the next year. He's going to have to. Otherwise, he's going to start receiving a lot of criticism, and it's going to be warranted. It's going to be warranted, because you cannot have that high of praise and not be a champion ever. You have to. So, is what it is. Anyway, but Ezekiel, I believe, says, I think Ryan, to be honest, they wanted him to be great because he's handsome and sells. I agree with you. Ryan Garcia definitely is one of the most overrated boxers. He's not severely talented in terms of his skills. Very physically talented, very strong, very fast. A handsome-looking dude, to a lot of people. And that does sell. Oscar De La Hoya, it was very similar. And with other guys, or gals, it sells as well. So I agree with you. I think that he was someone that they always wanted to pan out, but he was never going to pan out because he wasn't ever as talented as say, like how do I say this? The potential star power that he could have was always higher than what his actual ability was. So I mean, it is what it is. Some people have that look, like they could be a mascot for boxing, but they're never going to be the actual like product. You know what I mean? So it's like that's just kind of what it is. But anyway, but anyways, best win is a no contest against Haney that he cheated in. Yeah, no, that's it. Then in his next fight, he lost against Rolex. So all that is a lot of comments. I'm glad about that. Thank you all so much. B Wayne 88 talking about UFC says Ronda Rousey was a hype job by Rogan and Dana, and her coochie got crabs. Man, okay, so I'll tell you this. Once again, I'm not someone that puts a lot of emotion into like my videos. Well, I mean, I put emotion into it, like because I put a lot of passion, but like I don't. You guys know what I mean, though. Like I try to be impartial. I try to be fair. I try to be objective. Ronda Rousey was one of those girls that eventually you were really happy to just see get knocked out. She was just a part of this big feminist bullshit. She was going after like a lot of these male fighters, saying that she can beat them in a boxing match, she can beat them up, she can do this, she can do that, and then it was starting to get so bad. Excuse me. And then it was starting to get so bad that she was starting to go after other women fighters, like starting to be a bitch towards them. There was rumors about, I mean, everyone saw the thing with Misha Tate, but then there was Paige Van Zandt coming out, then there was this and there was that. And it's like that was just a girl that needed her fucking block knocked off, and then eventually she kind of learned some shit. But excuse me, Ronda Rousey showed a lot of her true character, I think, overall, once she started losing, and showed that her character was not really that good, just in my view. That being stated, like, would I claim that she's a quote unquote hype job? Did I? Oh, crap. I think I got to get my remote, but oh well. I'm not going to claim she was a hype job because, I mean, she did defeat Kat Zingano, Misha Tate, and, some other gals. That being stated, she was a pioneer of MMA. And the thing is, with some of those people that are quote unquote pioneers of whatever sport it is, they're very good in the beginning and they're very, great, pretty much above everyone else. She was a level or two above everyone else. And then once people started to finally catch up with her, she didn't really show any multi-dimensions or adjustments. So I'm not going to say she was a hype job, but she was almost kind of like the Mike Tyson of her time. She did things that weren't really seen before, at least on average. And eventually, once girls kind of caught up with her, she didn't appear to be as good. So that's what I'll say about that. But anyways, Mr. Classic Metal says, at some point, the size factor becomes a hurdle that is too much to overcome. Roberto Duran was arguably more skilled compared to Tommy Hearns, but he was simply too tall and had too much reach. Okay, we're going to talk about Tommy Hearns for a minute, because anyone that has been on my channel knows that I also have an opinion about Tommy Hearns. We're going to talk about it in a sec. Okay, more water. Hold up. So, Tommy Hearns, I think, is a tremendous fighter. Very talented, very powerful, very fast, lengthy. My thing is this. He also is one of the more overrated fighters of all time. And I know that a lot of people would disagree, but the thing overall is this. He basically lost every big like A+ level fight in his career. He lost to Sugar Ray Leonard, he lost to Marvin Hagler, and he also lost to I almost said Saquon Barkley. Jesus Christ. His name was, what was his name? Iran Barkley, the guy that he lost to at middleweight and also super middleweight, I believe. Or no, maybe it was super middleweight and light heavyweight. I think he lost both at super middleweight and light heavyweight. But the point is that Tommy Hearns, the biggest win of his career, is probably over Wilfredo Benitez or Roberto Duran. And I mean, those are great wins, but there's only so much I really count the Roberto Duran win, because I mean, it's like, come on. Like, Duran is like, what, 5'9"? Actually, no, he wasn't even 5'9". He was like, what, 5'7"? He's like 5'7" with like a 69-inch reach. And then you have Tommy Hearns, who's like, what, 6'2", 6'3", 6'1", somewhere around there with like a fucking 78-inch reach. Like, this guy's built like Muhammad Ali for the welterweight division. It's a joke. That's why, like, that's why I always say, like, anyone who, in my view, is a quote-unquote major weight bully, I always kind of, I'm not going to say put a complete caveat, but, like, it's a little bit, it does have to factor in. Because once you start facing fighters of your own similar size and you start losing to them, then I have to take a look at your career differently, which is why I also take a look at Bernard Hopkins and Oscar De La Hoya a little bit differently than what most people do. Because people will tell me that, how can you say that De La Hoya, that he was overrated? He beat, Pernell Whitaker and Chavez. Like, that's great, but like those guys are not comparable in size. Once De La Hoya was fighting like, overall, like Ike Corte, and Felix Trinidad and Shane Mosley, he started losing or started having split decisions. So, that's why I bring that up. But anyway, but let's see. B. Wayne says, the Haney's channel tried to say Inoue was ducking MJ, and Inoue went in there and watched MJ. Well, my thing is this. I never went on that bandwagon, and I'm not someone that just jumps on whatever people say. And I don't think that like a lot of people try to do that in general, at least like with channels and the Haney's, because I think that there's somewhat of independent thinkers, but it's like, I think that my thing is this. MJ lost to Marlon Zapalas. And Inoue already beat Marlon Zapalas. He was going to fight the winner of that. Marlon Zapalas beat him. And then Inoue fought him. And then, MJ Akhmadaliev kind of had to work his way back up. So my thing is this is like, yeah, you can claim like, why is Inoue not taking the fight? But it's like, at the end of the day, MJ already had his opportunity. So he's kind of lucky that he got that Inoue title fight back in the first place. Because he really didn't fucking fight anybody to really get back in there with Inoue anyway. So, I mean, it is what it is. I never really believed that Inoue was fighting him. I never really believed that the fight was going to be that competitive. And that was one of the ones I also was right on as well. I never believed once that Inoue was avoiding him. I do think that he was taking a look at him like, I'll face him if I have to, but he's not at the top of my list. It's whatever. But I do think that win did help Inoue's career. I think that it was a needed victory. And he pretty much won that fight like 12 rounds to 0, in my view. To be honest, I didn't even give MJ a round in that fight. But anyway, Mr. Classic Mental says, I'm sure that Keyshawn would absolutely love the fight, saying Davis noticed issues from his side. I'm pretty sure about that as well. We all know where the issues would come from. So, I mean, it is what it is. GXTV 2057 says, salute BR, love your content. I think Ryan Garcia is more overrated than Tank. What do you think? Well, I guess it depends on what perspective. If you're placing Ryan Garcia on a very high level, then yes. Because Gervonta actually has top 10 level pound for pound potential. Ryan Garcia never did. So there's an argument to be made there for sure. It just depends on where you rank him. But the reason why I have to say Tank is because there's people that would literally rank him like within the top 3 pound for pound. Even guys like that are quote unquote claimed to be anti-black and stuff like that, like Top Rank or Timothy Bradley and certain guys like that. And it's like, what has he done? What has he ever done to be ever in that conversation? So I have to say Tank because he's usually ranked so much higher. But that being said, Tank does have a lot more potential than Ryan. I don't think there's any doubt about that. So I understand your point. But let's see. Dantra says most overrated is Canelo. I mean, no surprise there. We're familiar with our boy Dantra. I mean, what I'll say about Canelo is this. His career, after his Bivol loss, you can say that it was slightly overrated at that point because he just really was not fighting consistent, fighters that really people really wanted to see. I think that Canelo in some forms was overrated at that point, but it depends on what you're talking about Canelo, though. Because Canelo being an all-time great fighter, in my view, that's not overrating him because he is an all-time great level fighter. There's only, I think that he's around the level of Tommy Hearns and Bernard Hopkins and guys like that. Because those are guys that were at one point in time debatably number one pound for pound, but they just lost some of the bigger fights in their career as well as won them. But, against other true number one pound for pound fighters, they pretty much always lost. Like, you know what I mean? So that's why Canelo would be on that level instead of a higher level. But anyway, but then the next one says Fury nearly lost to Aldo Valin, a C-grade level fighter. Well, he did, but the thing is about Tyson Fury is that we can't just, kind of judge him on those fights because Tyson Fury is someone that fights to the level of his competition. You know what I mean? Tyson Fury would almost lose to Aldo Valin, like he would almost lose to Steve Cunningham, but then he would get in there against Wilder and just like whoop his ass. Then he would get in there against White and whoop his ass. He would get in there against Vladimir Klitschko and whoop his ass. So Fury is someone I think that needs that motivation and fights to the level of his competition. Now, if you're always fighting like shit against B or C grade level fighters, that's a different story. But excuse me, I'm not quite sure if he's just talking about Fury saying that he's overrated or that the win that Usyk got over him was not that big. But I have to disagree with that because he's someone that just fights to the level of his competition. So I have to mention that. But anyways, oh, he's talking about Virgil Ortiz. He said he beat a sick Majimov. Well, that's allegedly what it was, but I'm sorry, but I'm not going with that. I hear a bunch of excuses from fighters all the time saying that they were sick. If you were that sick and if it was that bad, then you wouldn't have taken the fight. And it was like that as a 50-50 fight going into it. So if you were in that bad a condition, then you wouldn't have took the fight. So sorry, but I'm not agreeing with that. But anyway, let's see. All right, we got some more options here. By the way, once again, for those of y'all that are new to the stream or just joining, or if you come up with any more ideas, put your most overrated boxers or UFC fighters down below, and we'll discuss them because I'm having a lot of fun here. Okay, so Mr. Classic Metal says, before the fight, I remember Dante claiming that Mikey could very well be Spence's most difficult opponent ever. I was driving and nearly swerved into the other lane because I was laughing so hard. Like I remember when people, especially Mikey's corner, when they were like, I see something and all sort bullshit. And I think they did probably see something because Spence can be a little bit hittable. He's not someone that changes levels to the best of degrees, but he still is someone that can box, especially against a smaller opponent. And I never thought that Mikey was really going to beat Spence, but I did think that he was, probably going to be the most skilled fighter that he was in the ring with. But I didn't think it was going to matter because Mikey did not have quick enough feet in my view, and he just didn't have the type of style to beat Spence in my view. So I wasn't surprised by the result at all. That's funny though. Anyway, B Wayne says Wilder and the Charlos are the most overrated. Okay, I actually have to agree with this 100%. The most overrated heavyweight, probably of the past 20 years, probably Deontay Wilder. And I don't have any beef with this man. Any fighter that I claim anything about, it's nothing personal. It's just what I personally think because of the evidence that's shown. But Deontay Wilder, very padded record. He went to 40-something-0, and really, other than Luis Ortiz, who really has he fought? Bermane Stiverne is okay, but I don't think anyone's going to say, like, wow, do you remember when Bermane Stiverne was champ? Like, no one gives a fuck about Bermane Stiverne. He beat other guys like Artur Spiltzka and older Chris Arreola. He beat, I'm trying to think who else, like Juan Duapas and, Eric Molina, but, like, all these guys just really weren't that good. And then when he finally fights guys like Tyson Fury, he loses badly. But it's forgivable that you lose to Tyson Fury because he was kind of the most skilled and the best heavyweight before Usyk got to him. And then you lose to Joseph Parker and Zhang. Now, I don't think that Wilder was really quite the same after the Fury trilogy, but Wilder's always going to be one of those what ifs because he just didn't have any big fights before then. And I know that a lot of people say, well, everyone was ducking him and blah, blah, blah. And I think that some people were, I think that some people were avoiding him. But there's also times where Deontay just didn't seem interested. Like there was a DAZN contract that I believe that he could have signed. I know that a lot of Wilder fans will claim that it was DAZN that apparently admitted why the fight didn't happen, but I think Deontay still could have signed. I think that he could have potentially did it, and he decided not to. And not only that, but he could have fought Dillian Whyte. Dillian Whyte was like his mandatory for like 3 fucking years, and he never decided to fight him. So, the thing is that he can never be remembered on the level of a Fury or an Usyk or an AJ because those guys actually fought competition there. Wilder never did. He fought one good fighter in Luis Ortiz, and it's very unfortunate because I would have loved to see him in other big fights. And I do think that at his absolute best, if he was an A-grade level fighter, but you just don't know how good he actually was. So I do agree. Wilder is probably the most overrated heavyweight of the past 20 years, just in my view. But still a relatively, good to great fighter. Charlo brothers, okay, well, let me state this. Jermell Charlo, anyone who's watched my channel in the past knows that I claim that he probably was, at one point in time, the most overrated top 10 pound-per-pound fighter because I just don't think that he really beat that talented of a weight class. And, give me a fucking break. The man lost to Tony Harrison, the guy that was known for getting knocked out on 2 separate occasions against Jarrett Hurd and another guy that I don't even remember his fucking name. So, Jermell Charlo did not, in my view, really run through this tremendous division. I think a lot of people tried to make it out like it was way better than what it actually was. He did beat Brian Castano, and I give him a lot of credit for that. But other than that, he just really didn't defeat any legit A-grade level fighters. And he lost to like a B-grade level fighter at that, and Tony Harrison. So it's like, that has to count against you. Not only that, but Jamal Charlo really probably should be fighting at fucking middleweight anyway. And Jamal Charlo, I mean, don't even get me started on him. Like, the man had the opportunity to fight Canelo, Andrade, basically everybody, and the man didn't take any of the fucking fights. Like, Jamal Charlo's career has basically been completely irrelevant, at least compared to other guys around him. So, I mean, and then, of course, he calls out David Benavidez. I mean, I knew that fight wasn't going to happen because anyone that knows Jamal Charlo knows that he's all bark and no bite. He'll say all this shit in the live stream and all sorts of stuff when he gets a few drinks in him, and then he never does anything about it. So I have to agree with you there because the resumes are just not as great. But Jamal Charlo is obviously the one that did the most amount of work. So he has to get a lot of respect. Anyways, okay. So let's see. All right. Next one is another one about Virgil. All right, let me see. Hold up. All right. So this guy says, I agree with what you said about Virgil. I don't want to see him fight Spence, though. Spence is not the same fighter he was. Virgil beats him pretty easily. You never know, but I would agree. I think it'd be different if Spence was still a little bit active, but he's just not. He hasn't been active literally for like, what now, 2-3 years? So, I mean, it's not a fight that I'd want to see right now either. I think he needs to fight a champion and start off there. That's what I think Virgil needs to do. So, yeah. Your boy Jay says a Spence versus Thurman fight could be interesting. It would be America's version of Brook versus Khan back in 2022. That actually is a great comparison. Because I remember Khan and Brook, there was a long time where Khan kind of like, you could tell that he was avoiding Brook a little bit because he knew that he was going to be a problem, and they both wanted to be remembered as the best British, like, around the welterweight division fighter of that era. Thurman avoided the fuck out of Spence. And, I like Thurman. Thurman's a great fighter, but he made every excuse in the book to not take that fight. Kind of like what Khan was doing with Brooks. So that'd be actually a really interesting fight because Spence is kind of damaged goods and Keith Thurman is damaged goods. I mean, fuck, I've never seen a fighter that has as many fucking injuries as Keith Thurman. I mean, Jesus Christ. Dominic Cruz in the UFC had less injuries than Keith Thurman did within like a whole fucking span of his career. And that's saying something. Anyway, let's see. Mr. Classic Metal says, at least in Kell Brook's case, he's talking about when I said that Kell Brook probably was avoiding Spence. He says, at least in Kell Brook's case, he stated months before that he'd like to fight GGG, so that one wasn't unexpected. He was offered the fight after Eubank Jr. pulled out and for the same big purse. I mean, that's fair. That's fair because Mikey did kind of pull it out of his ass. Let's see. Ralph says, is Canelo overrated? It depends on where you rank him. So let me get my remote real quick, guys. Hold on 1 second. Okay. All righty. Sorry about that, folks. Okay. All right. Gotta turn that off. Okay. So is Canelo overrated? It depends where you rank him. I think that I've already explained this. If you rank Canelo as pound for pound number one at one time, no, I don't think that means he's overrated. If you rank him as a all-time great level fighter, no, I don't think that means he's overrated. If you were to rank him along the same lines as a Crawford or an Usyk or a Mayweather or Sugar Ray Leonard, then yes, that would mean he's overrated because he has proven after the Crawford loss, at least until he possibly avenges it, that he can't be on their level because he lost to Floyd and he lost to Crawford. So kind of like De La Hoya, although I do think that Canelo is greater than De La Hoya and more skilled than what De La Hoya was, he proved that he lost to two guys coming up in weight. De La Hoya did as well, by the way. He actually lost to multiple smaller fighters in his career. But, kind of like Canelo. But overall, it depends where you rank him. But Canelo, after that fight, in my view, although all-time great level fighter, and I know that after his loss, a lot of people are bailing on that and everything, but no, he's an all-time great level fighter. You can't accomplish what he's done without being an all-time great level fighter, but he did prove, kind of like Tommy Hearns and Bernard Hopkins, whenever he actually got in the ring with the true top one, like number one pound-for-pound fighter, other than Gennady Golovkin, he pretty much lost. So, he is going to have to be remembered for that, but he is an all-time great level fighter. But let's see. B. Wayne says Sermon versus Broner or Blair Cobbs would be funny. That'd be an interesting fight. And I know that Blair Cobbs and Broner fought recently, so I know that. Let's see. Boston Jorge says those three have star power. It's been so long, man. I have to know what you're talking about, but yeah, like I said, it depends. Some people have star power, and then some people have star power, and they're a great fighter, and some people may not have star power, but they are a great fighter. So it depends. Blair Cobbs versus Ryan. That'd actually be an interesting fight. I'd like to see that one. But fucking, I don't think that fight would happen, because if Ryan lost that one, it would so fuck up his career. And I think that they're still looking to do him. Anyways, Malinaji versus Broner Part 2. That'd be interesting. I think that those fighters are on a similar level. I would claim that Broner is, probably more talented, obviously, but I mean, they're not too far apart. Paulie can be actually a little bit underrated at times, but it depends. Celestial Being says the powers that be were saving Duran Ennis for Crawford, but Crawford doesn't want him. Later, they wanted Duran versus Norman, but after Haney, that's no good now. It is very possible for Duran versus Virgil. I would love to see that. I can't really fucking, I definitely know that Crawford, as of recent, was not super hot about that fight, which, I don't really blame him too much for. But that being stated, overall, of course, there was also rumors that, Duran apparently turned it down twice before. I don't really know how legit that is. I would have to do some research on it, and it's a little bit hard for me to tell, because the Crawford fans especially are very protective over Crawford and his resume, because they believe that he has not gotten the credit that he deserves. So sometimes I think that they'll accept something that, may not possibly be true because they want it to be true. But once again, I have to look at that. They could be right. But anyway, let's see. Callum Smith will most certainly beat David Morrell. Outside of a KO, Morrell is probably going to lose. And that's a fight that could go either way. It all depends on how well Smith boxes and, does that. But I could easily see Callum Smith winning that fight. I actually think that he has more to his style than what David Morrell does, but that doesn't always mean you're going to win. So anyway, Mike Rodriguez says, I actually feel the same about Ronda as I do Shields, because Shields was talking about she can beat GGG. That now she was, and they're both very big feminists, somewhat to a degree. You got to be careful with women like that. That's whenever you see that shit, that's a huge red flag, at least in my view. So that's why a lot of people were kind of satisfied eventually when she got taken down. She was just kept talking all this shit on everybody. And then as soon as she lost, she's shown that her true character was paper thin. So it is what it is. Anyway, I might get heat for this one, but BJ Penn, brother, I agree with you. And I like BJ. BJ's a great fighter. I like his mentality. But he was a little overrated. He lost more fights than probably what he should have. He lost to peak Frankie Edgar. He also lost to peak George St. Pierre. He also lost to I believe Jens Pulver. He is slightly overrated. I don't think he's massively overrated, but he is a little bit overrated. He lost a little bit too many fights for him to be put in certain conversations that he's put in. So I agree with you. Hearns lost to Iran Barkley twice. Interestingly, Duran managed to defeat Barkley convincingly. Yeah, that's why they say styles make fights. And a fight in which he displayed his elite ring IQ. The Modern Martial Artist channel broke it down. Yeah, Roberto Duran is one of those fighters that is a very interesting case. He did lose certain fights that he probably should have not. So that's why Duran isn't quite in my GOAT conversation, but he's in a level below. Like, he's in the conversation with guys like, if you want to put Crawford there, if you want to put, excuse me, if you want to put, I'm trying to think like who else, Pernell Whitaker, Julio Cesar Chavez, Usyk, certain guys like that. But those, like each of those fighters I just mentioned, could easily be within the GOAT conversation as well if you want to provide the right argument. So it's up to you, because Duran did defeat Sugar Ray Leonard, who was the best of his time. He gave Hagler a hell of a fight and probably would have won the fight had it only been 12 rounds. So that's something I got to give him as well. And then he did defeat Iran Barkley. So no, the man was a monster. And all this when he really could have stayed at 135 or 140. So now Duran deserves a lot of props. He probably is the most overachieving fighter of all time, to be quite honest with you. just in my personal view. But anyway, but let's see. Baron Evola says the issue with Yard and Ryan Garcia isn't that they aren't talented. Yard / Tundi. We have the lion spirit. Ryan was rejected by trainer after trainer for not being serious. Anthony Yard is someone that is very physically talented, but he's just never going to have the skills or the boxing IQ. That's another fighter that I've also said is massively overrated. Anthony Yard. I think that he's very physically talented, but skills-wise, his skills have been very overrated for a long time. And it kind of came from this perspective of like, oh, well, he had these life and death fights with Sergey Kovalev, but not really. I mean, he had a very good fight. He gave him real 2 tough rounds, but it wasn't like, it wasn't like he was really close to winning. Every judge had him, clearly losing the fight. So anyway, but does this guy realize that saying Canelo is the most overrated fighter ever, that he's taking away from the Bud win over Canelo? He screams how great Bud is for beating Canelo, but then calls Canelo overrated. Yeah, I agree with that. Isn't it very interesting how all of a sudden that now that Crawford beat Canelo Alvarez at Aki TV and Dante, they're claiming that Canelo is the greatest Mexican fighter of all time. But before they were claiming that Canelo can't even hold on to guys like Marco Antonio Barrera and Eric Morales' jockstrap. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that exactly what I predicted? I told you guys they were going to do that because it was all about, once again, the threat that Canelo was to beating the best fighter of his generation. Ooh, excuse me. Anyway, but let's see. Clarissa Shields will get her face broken by a 15-year-old amateur male of the same size. Hold on one sec, guys. Whew. Sorry. Anyways, I agree. And I'm actually going to do a video about probably like certain athletes like transitioning, and then competing in other sports. So I'm going to do a video on that eventually as well. But let's see. Demetrius Andrade was somewhat overrated to me. He's one of the most overrated fighters of all time. I've never seen a fighter that got so much praise for his ability and for this and for that. And then you last 6 total fucking rounds against David Benavidez, and you're pretty much the same size as Caleb Plant. And you've not fought like literally. And I know that people will say that he was avoided. And yes, he was avoided, no doubt. But were you that avoided to the point of where you couldn't even have fought one former champion on your resume? He has no champions on his resume. None. He's never beaten one. Never. So it's like I have to hold that against him. It just is what it is. He did fight David Benavidez, but you got your ass kicked within 6 rounds. So I don't count that. You know what I mean? So it's whatever. But anyways, Mr. Classic Metal says it was so embarrassing when Ortiz stated that Spence was his dream fight. That was like watching a bad comedy. Well, I actually don't mind him saying that. I get it, but it's like, Errol Spence is just not really relevant anymore. I get like always kind of having a dream, and even if it seems like, not as relevant anymore, like you still want to do it. I get it. Like if I was a boxer and I had an older boxer that wasn't quite as relevant anymore, I still would have a dream fight. Like I still kind of want to see the AJ versus Deontay Wilder fight, but it pretty much has passed us by. But there's just certain things that you kind of want to see, even if probably they don't really belong there anymore, because you wanted it to happen. It was so big for such a long time, but then it kind of just passes you by. But I mean, it's unfortunate, but it's whatever. But I do think that obviously the biggest fight for him right now will be Jerome Boots Ennis, but it's whatever. Anyway, do you think Charlo and Andrade could beat Yanibek in their peak? I'm not so sure. I think Andrade is more talented than Charlo, at least skills wise. I don't know. Charlo. The problem is that Yanibek is that I've just not seen enough of him against true elite competition. And I don't think that that's completely his fault. He is fighting Laura next. I think that that's pretty much the best fight that he can get. But honestly, I think Laura has not been really, at his peak form for years now. So I expect Yanibek to win that fight. I think that Yanibek would have a very great chance against Charlo. Andrade would have been hard, but even Andrade knew there was a problem there because instead of continuing to fight at 160, he finally fought up at 168. And a part of it also was because he wanted to fight Canelo and he realized that he needed to stop wasting his career. But another part of it also was because this is the perfect time because this guy is very dangerous. He's my mandatory. And overall, I have the right excuse to move out. And this guy is very dangerous. And, I don't need to be fighting this guy when he doesn't have that big of a name. So I don't know. I think that Janibek would have had a great chance against both. I think he for sure probably would have beat Charlo. As for Andrade, that would have been interesting just because he is skilled and he has a very in and out type of style and he's very tall and lengthy, with good feet. So that would have been interesting. But anyway, let's see. Let's see. All right. All right. Um, what's the next one? Mr. Classic Metal says the Crawford fight was offered to Team Ennis and Bozy confirmed that on camera. They declined the offer, stating they wanted to be loyal to the Showtime, which is why Crawford fight. Okay, well then, if that's true, then I mean, yeah, you definitely have to blame Boots on that. Anyways, Malinashi and Broner in a bare knuckle fight. Oh fucking poor Paulie, man. Jesus Christ, Broner is washed up, man. But like, fuck, Paulie is done, dude. Paulie is losing to MMA fighters in bare knuckle boxing, man. Shit, he doesn't need that ass kicking. Jesus Christ, the hell are you guys trying to do to poor Paulie? Good Lord. Anyway, fucking Shields is a clown. She was dropped on her ass by a C-level lightweight and then wanted to run her car to get a knife to cut him. Oh, yeah. Holy shit, that's right. I remember. True sportsmanship. Yeah, and she's talking about all this shit about she can beat guys up. Like, you got overall dropped by a dude, and apparently overall, like, that guy was giving her some problems as well. And I mean, it's whatever, I mean, she's a woman boxer. It's going to happen. If you fight male boxers because of their bone density and their musculature, it's going to happen. It is what it is. It's fine. But don't try to, like, get on this fucking mic and talk all this shit about how you're just going to beat up these male boxers and all this other bullshit. Like, please. It is what it is. Anyway, what I want to know is why did Aaron Pryor and Roberto Duran never face off? Aaron Pryor to me was always a little bit overrated. He probably is one of my top 10 most overrated fighters of all time. I do think he was very talented. I also think that his coach cheated for him in the Alexis Aguayo fight. Panama Lewis, who's one of the most notorious cheaters of all time. But when it comes down to it, I heard from a lot of people that he was avoided, but I don't know. I can't tell you specifically why that fight didn't happen. I'm sure a lot of his fan base will tell you that because Duran avoided him. And maybe he did, but to me, it don't really matter that much because Duran faced Sugar Ray Leonard, Tommy and Marvin Hagler. He fought every other fighter that mattered more than Aaron Pryor. So to me, it don't really matter that much. Aaron Pryor really does not have that great of a resume. He really only fought Alexis Arguello, and that really was about it. But, it is what it is. But he was a great fighter. Anyway, think of Mikey Garcia defeating Daniel Jacobs. The thought of that is laughable at best. That's what Duran accomplished, though, when he fought Barkley. That is a pretty good comparison. Yeah, no, that's why Duran is probably one of the greatest of all time. He's definitely top 10, top 20 at the very least. He deserves to be up there. He's someone that is absolutely phenomenal. I'm trying to think of other fighters that would be on my list at the current moment in time. Who else would I claim is super overrated, at least in terms of the boxing world? The Hall of Fame guy that has no business being there, Sean Porter, nice guy. Hall of Fame, though, no. It depends on what your standards are. Hall of Fame, to me, even Paulie and Broner are Hall of Fame. So if those guys are in the Hall of Fame, I'd put Sean Porter in because he's a multiple-time champion. He does have a win over Danny Garcia and some other guys. You're Dana Sugas, although I don't personally think he won that fight. And a couple of other ones, Devin Alexander. So he's in there, but he's just not like, the best of the Hall of Fame, But anyway, who would be another fighter? I'm thinking more like current roster, but I might do all time. I'm not sure. Who would be another one? I might have to take a look at my list on my phone. I made this list so long ago. I got it. Okay. Yeah, I got to go with Edgar Berlanga. I think that a lot of people kind of already know that he's not like, the creme de la creme or anything, but Edgar Berlanga was always a guy that pretty much once he started stepping up level of competition that people pretty much knew that he was not going to make it that far. Got completely dominated against Canelo, steps in there against Hamza Shiraz in a fight that should have been 50-50, and he gets completely knocked out. He gets completely stoked within that fight. And, it's not even close. So he's up there. I'm trying to think of who else would I say is overrated. You see Max Kellerman saying Devin Haney isn't a great fighter, LOL Clown World. Yeah, Max is someone that I haven't always agreed with either. Devin Haney, in my view, is a great fighter. He's not someone that, in my view, is number one pound for pound or anything, but he's someone overall that deserves a lot of his props. He's been willing to fight anybody, and he's a champion in 3 weight classes. Now, I will be releasing a video talking about the potential of Devin Haney becoming the next number one pound for pound because people have talked about him, and it appears overall that, Dante and Aki TV are grooming him to be the next person they're going to use to probably try to use him against guys like Inoue and guys like that. But, we'll see. But anyway, this guy says, Mike Rodriguez says, what do you think about a lot of people like Ryan and others saying GGG is not a Hall of Fame? I think it's BS. I think GGG is for sure Hall of Fame worthy, but I understand some people's points because he didn't face a whole lot of A-grade level names. He only fought Canelo and Danny Jacobs. But, I mean, he fought the guys he was around. But I'll personally stand as this. If Aaron Pryor's a Hall of Famer, so is Golovkin. That's all I'm going to say. But anyway. Golovkin didn't face that many A-grade level names, but he also was avoided by Sergio Martinez and Peter Quillen and other guys like that. And, you can argue that he could have took more opportunities, but he did fight the guys that were around. Unfortunately, it was not the strongest division, but, it still was the guys that were around, unfortunately. Let's see. Pryor was notorious for fucking things up while negotiating big fights, and his biggest wins were against Arguello, a guy who was naturally a smaller guy. I agree with that. And he cheated in that fight, by the way. His trainer definitely had a mixed bottle in that fight. By the way, for those of you that are not familiar with Panama Lewis, Panama Lewis is the fucking trainer that is known for the biggest cheating scandal of all time in boxing history, which I think they made a documentary of. It was like some Puerto Rican fighter. I don't remember his fucking name. But it was known as like, what was it? It was like, Assault in the Ring. That's what it was called. It was called Assault in the Ring. This motherfucker apparently pulled padding out of the Puerto Rican's gloves. And of course, obviously the Puerto Rican knew what was going on. But, and then they fought this one undefeated fighter by the name of Billy Conn or something like that, beat the hell out of him with both padding out of the gloves. And Panama Lewis was such a fucking scumbag. He was known as a notorious cheater. So I have no doubt in my mind that Aaron Pryor cheated in that fight. Maybe he would have won the fight anyway. But there's some shady things about that as well. Anyway, Pitbull is pretty damn overrated, especially with Teddy Atlas claiming he's a mini Mike Tyson. Absolutely. The reason why Pitbull Cruz is pretty much ranked so highly is because of Gervonta Tank Davis fans. That's really about it. He's a one-dimensional fighter. He is talented, but he's not someone that can fight within a multitude of ways. He's very massively overrated. That's why he lost to, also Jose Valenzuela, But anyway, let's see. Dante and Aki are trying to do with Devin what they did with Wilder, saying he would be pound for pound if he beats. I someone agree with that. Well, what they're trying to do with Devin is kind of what they're trying to do with Crawford. Their goal is to always make sure that a Black American fighter is always at the number one pound for pound spot. And there's other channels that, of course, are trying to make sure that that happens with non-Black fighters. Don't get it twisted. But that's what Dante's doing. That way, he gets it into the mind of people as soon as possible that, well, it's Devin that really should be number one pound for pound. He's been number one pound for pound for 10 years. But so watch out for that because they're going to be doing that with if people debate that Inoue is number one pound for pound and other guys like that. They're going to start doing it. But anyway, but yeah, I'm trying to think who else is a little bit overrated in boxing right now, or even UFC fighters. I actually have a whole list of UFC fighters, but I'm trying to think of more boxing right now. I'll go into UFC here in a bit as well. But for boxing, who else did I have? Ryan Garcia, I also had on my list, but I think that's quite obvious. Never won a belt. Then he has a belt opportunity against Rolly Romero. Literally loses almost every round in that fight. Just ridiculous. So yeah, that was pretty bad. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Any other fighters I'm thinking of? I don't know. I might actually read some of y'all's comments here in a minute. I'm gonna blow my nose real quick, so I'm gonna mute the mic and then I'll read some of y'all's comments. So I'll be right back. All right, there we go. I'm back. Sorry about that. All right. Woo. Anyway, alrighty. So let's see. I gotta read some of those comments. And then I might go into my UFC fighters, to be quite honest with you, to kind of add on to it. So let's see. Lewis Wrestler himself admitted that Panama Lewis laced his drinking water with asthma medicine to give him an extra boost in the latter rounds. So there's no doubt that Pryor had. I agree with you. No doubt in my fucking mind. Let's see. The reason why I especially despise LDBC channels. Excuse me. Let me get my laptop closed first of all. Says the reason why I especially despise LDBC channels is because they are such crybaby hypocrites that get upset at other groups for favoring non-black fighters, but do the same. Well, that's pretty much the reason why I reviewed their videos, because that's basically them to an absolute T. I agree with you. Anyway. B. Wayne says, "Hey, bro, what did you think Paul pictured sparring Anderson, Akoli, and Frank Sanchez?" I didn't even fucking see it, to be honest with you. I can't believe that the AJ versus Paul fight is actually fucking happening. That to me is really insane. I mean, if the fight actually is not quote unquote fixed, which I assume that it probably won't be, we'll see. I will give Paul a lot of credit. At least he's stepping in there with a guy that is a legit threat. Let me give him a lot of credit. That is something that is definitely dangerous. So I'll give him credit for that. You know what I mean? Anyways, all right. Who else did I have on my list? I'm trying to think. Who are other overrated fighters within out of boxing today? I will say a little bit, and I know a lot of people would disagree with me to a degree. This could very well be Jake Paul's last fight. Yeah. I mean, could put him in a coma. Who the fuck knows? Talking about heavyweight real quickly, actually. Let me talk about another fighter that I do find to be slightly overrated, which I find to be Filip Hrgović. And I think that he is talented, but I think that his talent was slightly overrated. And we did see that against Daniel Dubois. A lot of people actually think that that he lost to that of a Big Bang Zhang. And on top of that, overall, when we seen this fight against Daniel Dubois, he pretty much had a piss poor performance. So Filip Hrgović actually also would have to be on my list. I was not quite ever as impressed with him as what some other people tried to make him out to be. I do think he's a very good fighter with potential, and he is a very good contender. But I need to see a little bit more for me to really say that he's like a true number one title contender. Because recently, I mean, he's kind of showing a lot of the holes that he once had. He did have a very good performance over David Adelaide in his last fight, but David Adelaide has pretty much shown that he's never going to be a true top 10 contender. So, I mean, we'll see on that. But anyways, Martin McCauley, the sparring champ who got TKO'd by Joe Joyce in sparring. Martin McCauley was on my list earlier, man. I said him at the beginning of the fucking video because there was all these rumors, especially by guys like Dante, that wanted to make Usyk look bad and be like, well, McCauley knocked out Usyk in sparring. And it's like, but how do we know that? You know what I mean? So it's like they just take whatever they want to as fact because they want to try to, degrade a certain fighter. And that's why people call McCauley like the world sparring champion, because it's like there's all these rumors. And then when it comes to his big fights, other than Jared Big Baby Anderson, like he don't fucking show up. So it's like, yeah, no, I agree with that. I agree. But yeah, man. Yeah, no, I agree with that. Says going out with a big bang, then retired to focus on being a promoter of Jake Paul. Yeah, man, we'll see. I mean, I think he actually does have a goal in mind. I think he does want to become a champion, but I just think it's, I like his ambition. I like his goals, and I think that he is being serious about it. But I don't think it's going to happen, but we'll see. We'll see. But yeah, I don't know. I can't really think of any other overrated boxers at the moment in time. Who would my top 5 be? Probably for the most overrated in boxing. I mean, at the current moment in time, I'm not really going to talk about guys like Wilder or the Charlo brothers because they're not quite as relevant anymore. But Gervonta Tank Davis, he has to be number 1. I don't think there's any doubt about it. After that, I know I already commented this on one of your videos, but I want to say it here too. Now, feel free to comment anything you want. But Shit, did I say that I was gonna go through some of the comments? I'm pretty sure I did on my most recent video. God damn it. Yeah, I might either have to do a response to that or maybe I can do a little bit more. I'll see. Um, but yeah. Anyways, sorry about that, guys. But let me see. I'm trying to think here. I had some. Oh yeah, Javonte Tank Davis has to be number one. After that, um, I think I might legit say Martin McCauley. I think he would have to at least be within my top 5, or at least top 10. Um, I think Israel Majimov's a little bit overrated. Ryan Garcia, you definitely can put there. I don't think Virgil Ortiz is where he deserves to be in the top 5. I honestly, he wouldn't even be within my top 10 to be honest with you. But it's whatever. And who else would be there? Probably who else would be there? I'm trying to think. I don't know. I don't know who else at the moment would be probably on that list. I'd have to look at it. Maybe Rolly Romero. Rolly Romero is pretty overrated as well. I mean, we all know why. Yeah. Anyway, let's see. The funny thing is Dante and his audience showed the biggest fucking hissy fit when those rumors of Kermit Moulton getting worked on by Giorgio Vasoli and sparring came out. They were the first ones to well, I agree with you. But that's what fanboys do. They'll take anything as fact if it's going to go for their side. But then when it goes against their side, all of a sudden they become the biggest researchers and this is speculation. So yeah, that's why I do those videos. Where's the proof and stick up for him and make excuses? But when it's Usyk, he just takes it as face value and does zero and quit. Agreed, which is why I reviewed his videos. But yeah, Mike Rodriguez says, what do you think Jamal Charlo does at 168 fight with Shiraz, Mbili, or Plant? Do you favor him against any of those guys if he takes one of those fights? I don't really know where Plant is at this moment. He didn't look impressive in his last fight to me. He looked like a shell of his former self, so that's very possible that he could beat Plant. And Plant's getting older, suffering some wear and tear, so he could beat Plant possibly. Now, if it was a Plant that was at his absolute best, I probably would favor Plant, but Plant doesn't look quite the same as what he once did. So it is what it is. Let's see. Shiraz, I probably would favor Shiraz. Now, if it was Prime v Prime, that'd be an interesting fight. Maybe slightly Jamal, maybe. But Jamal's not really in his prime anymore either. He kind of wasted it, and he's been mentally gone for a while. Mbili, I think that's the French dude that just fought fucking Lester Martinez, where they clearly were trying to give Lester Martinez a fucking fight, by the way. But yeah, Mbili, I don't know. Mbili's not really a guy that is like A+ in my view. He's kind of a pressure fighter that puts a whole load on you, but like he's not someone that comes across to me as super technically sound. He gets hit too much. He does not have the best feet. He does not look like he can fight great within a multitude of ways. That's a winnable fight for Charlo. I probably would favor Mbili just slightly, just because he's more active, and that's a really bad style for Charlo to fight. But if it was Prime v Prime, I'd pick Charlo easily because of the size and the skill. But anyway, but let's see. To be fair, in Martin McCauley's case, is his trainer Billy Nelson, who's constantly claiming that his fighter is the guiding light in the heavyweight division. Well, sometimes, but it's also Martin McCauley getting on YouTube claiming that he's knocked out Usyk and Fury, and AJ and Spine, like, oh, it's our bullshit. So I mean, it's partially him, but it's also McCauley as well. Anyways, let me actually read some of y'all's comments real quick on my latest video, because this is actually the whole fucking reason why I did this video in the first place. But let's see. But okay, so yeah, so this person, let me reiterate this because a lot of people overall, they once again take my videos the wrong way. He says, I listened to most of your video until you lost me with the Terrence Crawford having a padded resume. I think this is one of the reasons I struggle with American boxing fans. Everything is affinity bias. Dante somewhat had a point, but because you guys Americans race bait, especially him, so much that you missed the point. He said he wouldn't mind him taking the fight as long as he is going to call out the fighters, that the public were eager for him to fight. That's fair. You don't want him calling out big fights, but again, he race baits, brings up names like Haney, couldn't say that and get away with it. Well, the thing is like, to me, race baiting is not, race baiting overall definitely can be bringing up race, But there's a time and a place, I think, to bring it up appropriately. The problem is overall with Dante, the reason why I like to review his videos is because he tricks so many of the minorities of the boxing community, especially, into thinking overall that everything is just, if you don't agree with their opinions, then you're racist against these black fighters, or, they're trying to tear them down, or that, they're an Uncle Tom or something like that. And that's just not always the case. You got to take a look at the case logically and not from an emotional standpoint. And the thing is about Dante is that I have no problem with what he said about David Benavidez because I 100% agree. But if you're going to claim that, be consistent. Because whenever it comes to Lomachenko, Usyk, or Canelo, or Benavidez, all of a sudden he comes out of the woodwork and it's like, well, I was really surprised to hear him not be, as, interested in fighting those guys. And maybe he's just not ready for them. Like, he'll say something like that, kind of alleging overall like they're avoiding him. But if it was Devin Haney or Tank Davis, then he would put it in a completely different view. He would state that, well, obviously he wants to fight. We just want to, we'll see what he does after this. So that's kind of my thing. Dante puts it in a completely different type of context and perspective, depending on who it is. So that's why I said that. But anyway, how Embiid passes drug test is beyond me. I don't know, man. He could be on steroids, to be honest. I don't know much about him. Honestly, I don't think that the man was a Dante fanboy. I just think that he probably, maybe. I just think that, he was, maybe because he kind of agreed with him. He could have been. But, I think that he also realizes that Dante race baits a little bit. He sounds somewhat neutral. Probably was a former subscriber of Dante, then started realizing some of his bullshit as well, but maybe still, kind of follows him. He does sound like a person that agrees with a lot of what Dante says, but I think he's also more realistic than like some of the other Dante viewers I get on my channel. Let's see. But anyway, but yeah, no, I wanted to say that. Let me review it. But these guys, they say Zerdo Ramirez. I'm asking honestly, outside of Bivol, who of note has he ever fought? I said the same thing earlier, dude. You should have seen the beginning of the video. I said that Zerdo Ramirez has the most padded record of all time. It's not even close. Like it's so bad. Other than Arthur Abraham and Bivol, the man has literally fought jack fucking shit. Like he's fought nobody. So I agree with you there. But let me Mr. Classic Metal also says, remember when Shakur complimented Bam? Dante didn't like it, not one bit, and made a few videos about it. Yeah, I've also stated that as well. Whenever there is a non-black fighter that compliments a black fighter, Dante basically says, see, this is their true opinion. They know that the black fighters are the best. But then when it comes to black fighters complimenting guys like Canelo or Lomachenko or Usyk, they're like, well, don't be an Uncle Tom. You don't have to appease the race fans. It's like, dude, like why would it not just be their possible regular opinion? Like, are you saying that because you actually think that, or are you saying it because you want it to be true? Like, so that's also another thing I've mentioned. Anyway, but let's read some of these other replies. So Angry Cat said Terrence Crawford does have a padded resume. Guys injured, involved, crash accidents, blah, blah, blah. Well, I mean, I don't really go into the stuff of making excuses about some of his wins. But Crawford, before he fought guys like Sean Porter and Spence, he did have a padded record. It just is what it is. Anyway. Mike Rodriguez said when he said padded record, I don't believe he was referring to Crawford. I believe he was referring to Zerto. No, I was talking about both. But Zerto definitely has a lot more of a fucking padded record than that of Crawford. At least Crawford fought like a lot of B grade level champions. Zerto fought fucking bums, dude. Like it was ridiculous. Anyway, but yeah, thank you. He says Boxing Realist does not have any racial bias and is very fair with his boxing takes. Thank you very much, sir. Anyway, but anyways, okay, but kind of just to end off on that point, the reason why I said that Crawford's resume was padded was because it somewhat was, not because he did not face very good fighters before Porter and guys like that, but like I said, the two biggest ones that he had before then was Gamboa and Postal, and you had these people debating that he was the 100% number one pound per pound fighter, but then bitching about guys like Canelo and Lomachenko being the number one pound per pound fighter because their resumes weren't up to par. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. How are you going to claim that Lomachenko is fighting Rigondeaux and Linares and Walters and Gary Russell Jr., that their resumes aren't up to par? And then Canelo, who fought like what? Golovkin, Callum Smith, Caleb Plant, Danny Jacobs, Araceli Lara, like all these guys. You're going to claim that the resumes aren't up to par. But Crawford, who fought Victor Postal, who no one ever thinks would ever be a top 10 level pound for pound fighter, and Gamboa, who clearly is not a 135 pounder, and someone overall that was massively undersized for that weight class and against Crawford, and someone that, I mean, also was never a top 10 pound for pound fighter. The thing is that they bitch and moan and complain about how Lomachenko or some of these other fighters that they shouldn't be number one because, you know, overall look at their resume. But then with Crawford, they have no problem with it. It's like, it's just whatever. But anyway, let's take a look. But let's see. Miklo says fighting Zerto is a big jump. I want to see it, and DB is no duck. But I think DB should have called out Better Beef, and then Smith of Better Beef says no. That gives Bevo enough time to return from surgery and fight David. If they don't want the smoke, then you move up to fight Zerto. That's the way you eliminate haters. I think that, to be honest with you, for David Benavidez, I think that I'm trying to think. I think that it's actually a good move. And the reason why I think it's a good move, it's another A-grade level fighter, in my view. He's another Mexican fighter, or at least a Mexican descent. And it's a third weight class, and it can get you adjusted to the power and kind of the size of guys like Better Beef and Bevo. That's one thing. And on top of that, I think Benavidez is at the stage right now where he's trying to get a little bit more popular. And I think that Mexico versus Mexico type of fight would be absolutely huge. So I think that's kind of where he's coming from. Now, if he fights Zerto and then still is like refusing to fight Better Beef and People after that, then yeah, then we have to then we have to criticize him. But anyway, that's why I'm not quick to criticize people until it's like an absolute in my view. But anyway. Rolly Romero the Goat actually asked a very interesting question. He said, do you think Jeff Lacey was a hype job? To a degree, yeah. Jeff Lacey, I think, was a very decent fighter, but the way that he was kind of promoted and the way that Kawasaki just whooped his ass, as well as every other fighter pretty much after that, yeah, he was a little bit of a hype job. He wasn't someone that I think just had no substance, but he was massively overrated in terms of his fighting. So he was not as skilled as what a lot of people try to say that he was. And that's why almost no one ever brings him fucking up anymore. So, I mean, it is what it is. Anyway, but let's see. Why should David sit around and wait on Bivol and Better Beef? It will at least be a year out before that fight can happen. Well, to be fair to Mr. David Benavidez, he did try for the Bivol fight, and Bivol said no. So, I mean, it is what it is. So, I mean, I have to give Benavidez that. And on top of that, like, do you really want to fight Better Beef right now? Like, when there's no titles on the line, and it's like already won the fight that you were supposed to in order to get the unification fight. So it's like, I understand Benavidez's perspective. I do. So I can't size them too. Now, if you plan that you can't get any fights whatsoever, and that you want to be top 5 pound for pound, and you're still turning down Better Beef, whether he has belts or not, then yeah, okay. Then you're going to deserve a little bit of criticism. But as for right now, I actually don't think it's a bad move. Anyway, let me drink some water. Let's see. I already read Mr. Classic's thing on that. Benavidez versus Jaya Opataya for Undisputed Unification 2026. Man, that's rough. I don't think Benavidez can do it that soon. Because I just think it's too much of a jump, to be quite honest with you. For right now, I think Zerto is beatable, but he's also a very good fighter for the weight class. Jaya Opataya is someone that has one-shot knockout power, and he's very talented. I think that would be a huge mistake to fight him next, in my view, but we'll see. I think you save Jaya Opataya for last, to be honest. And, I'll save the Usyk Benavidez conversation for a separate video. But let's see. Let's read Florida Man. He says, Dante has a point to a degree. The public shouldn't be excited that Benavidez has opted to fight Zerto instead of the WBC number 1 being Better Beef. It made more sense for him to fight to legitimize his claim to his WBC title by beating the former champ and then fighting with Bivol for the Undisputed. Some would agree, but I also understand the perspective. You already fought the fight that was supposed to give you the unification fight, and then you have one of the most dangerous fighters on the planet who doesn't even have any belts. So I mean, like, I kind of get it. Anyway, it gives Benavidez the last chance to fight for a title, and it legitimizes Benavidez' status as a legit champ. Bivol is going to come back next year and fight his IBF mandatory, Michael Effort, as it has already been ordered to fight. But Benavidez wasn't going to be next anyway. I was excited for the Yard fight because I thought it was a warm-up for the Benavidez fight. Him fighting Zurdo also provides Zurdo another opportunity to duck the long-awaited unification fight with Opataya. I mean, if Zurdo loses the Benavidez fight, he's going to have to probably fight Opataya. I don't think I'll have a problem fighting Opataya if he actually loses because then he'll want a title. So it's always when fighters are at their lowest when all of a sudden they want opportunity, which of course makes sense. But anyways, let's see. Where was I at? It's really a double duck with both Benavidez and Zurdo using each other to duck the killers in their weight classes. Benavidez shouldn't even be thinking cruiserweight. He should be thinking undisputed at 175. I definitely understand a lot of your perspectives. I understand like why Benavidez would take the fight right now. I don't really have a problem with it. But after this, yeah, he's gonna have to take a big A+ fight. Mike Rodriguez commented, he said, boxing realist, I get what you mean when you say he can go up and fight Zurdo and it can help him with the size and power of another Benavidez. I do agree with you on that, and it could get him more prepared. But the problem is he going to come back down? I just don't think so because Benavidez is so fucking huge that I'm hearing he is somewhat have making 175 pounds. I think he stays at cruiserweight, and that's why Benavidez versus Benavidez won't happen. If he moves up, that's why I was hoping he would wait till after Evolve. Even if he does come back down, do you think dropping back down and weight can negatively? It definitely can negatively affect him. I mean, we see Roy Jones move up to heavyweight, then try to move back heavyweight. Now, of course, moving from cruiserweight to light heavyweight probably isn't as big of a jump, but it's still a jump. And we saw it basically completely deplete Roy Jones to the point where he wasn't the same. So it definitely could. But then at certain times, there's also been fighters like Canelo that went from 168 then back down to 160, and they were okay. So I mean, it just depends. It depends on the fighter. Benavidez, to be honest with you, I mean, he does look big, but he doesn't look like huge for 175. You know what I mean? I definitely think he can fit a cruiserweight, but he looks like more of a 175 pounder to me. Maybe a cruiserweight fighter. We'll see how big he is compared to Zurdo, but to be honest, he looks more similar in size to these light heavyweights to me. But we'll see. But it definitely could affect him. That's why I was a little bit surprised. I thought he'd kind of wait it out. But now that I see it, I could see why he's going after this. But if he's as serious as what he's talking, he will have to go after Benavidez and Bivol after this, no matter who it is. So we'll see. And if he does stay at cruiserweight, he's gonna have to go after Jai Opataya, or at least fight another big name there and then fight Jai, because he's not going to be able to be talking all this stuff about fighting the best and I just want to show people that they can fight the best, and then overall not fight them. Like, that's not going to happen. So I mean, he's going to have to do it anyway. So let's see. So I'll probably respond to you there, but yeah, just in case I don't, hopefully you heard it right there. But yeah, it would actually be foolish for Benavidez to actually avoid both of those fights, considering that his best path to becoming a top 5 pound for pound fighter. I would agree somewhat. It just depends, but it depends on whether he goes back down or not. Anyways, guys, I'm gonna end this soon actually because boy, my throat is just can't fucking take anymore. But anyways, so let's see. B. Wayne says, I feel like some Black Americans only like Salvador Sanchez because of Roy Jones, and Tyson said they like him. Or them. Mike Tyson gave David Benavidez his name, the Mexican Monster, and noticed by casuals. I think a part of the reason why a lot of them probably also like Salvador Sanchez is because it appears he definitely has some black mixture in there. I mean, if you take a look at him, he had a huge afro, and it also appears that some of his features that he also appeared to be, Mexican, of course, but, apparently was, appeared to be somewhat of a Afro-Mexican, a little bit, to somewhat of a degree. But Salvador Sanchez also was a great boxer. He's someone that, is a great fighter. But I don't think he can be placed as the greatest Mexican fighter of all time, because I just don't think he accomplished enough, just in my view. And it's sad because his career was shortened, obviously, I think, because of a car accident. But, it is what it is. we don't give other fighters that leeway, so we can't give him that leeway either. But anyway, Mr. Classic Metal says, Gamboa is a bit of a sad case. They were passing him around like a Tijuana hooker between Haney, Tank, and Cruz when he was years past his prime. Yeah, I agree. I'm sure that Gamboa did appreciate those opportunities, though, but he basically was pretty much used as a stepping stone at that time to beat like a former great veteran. So, I mean, yeah, that's how it is sometimes, unfortunately. B. Wayne says, I forgot about Jeff left hook Lacey. Pretty much everyone has, man. So, yeah. Anyway, your boy Jay says, not going to lie, Salvador Sanchez is overrated by default. Hopefully, Box Realist didn't mention him because his career ended so short and he's put in the same level as Canelo and Chavez Sr. I agree. I think that he's slightly overrated. I don't think that he's massively overrated, but I just don't think he accomplished enough in order to be put quite that high. Just my personal view of it. But he was a fantastic fighter. Come on now, people. After moving up to cruiserweight, there's no way Benavidez is moving back down to light heavyweight. The jump from light heavyweight to cruiserweight is one of the biggest in boxing, and Benavidez loves to eat. I mean, you definitely can make that argument too, brother. I could see it. I hope that's not the case, but let's see. But yeah. David is already walking around at 205. He's already cruiserweight. LOL, so dropping back down isn't a problem. I mean, we'll see. That's a maybe. Because sometimes the fighter will be walking around there, and then after a while they get up to that weight and they just don't want to fucking move back down anymore. They want to continue eating. They can't make it down anymore, even though they probably could. Like they just don't want to. Like if Canelo tried really hard, I think that he could probably try to make 160. He don't fucking care to. I think Canelo feels comfortable 168, even though he doesn't really belong there. But he's a guy that just feels comfortable there. Anyway, but yeah, DB looked like a POW before the weigh-in with sunken eyes, and he's been talking about fighting Zerto since last year, right after moving up. He was never going to fight the light heavyweight champs. Possible, very possible. Yeah, your boy Jay, my throat can't take it anymore. Yeah, dude, I mean, it's just the truth, you know what I mean? Pause. Anyway, but B. Wayne says absolutely 100%. Anyways, guys, that's pretty much about it for today. I'll try to respond to the comments in the video the best that I can, if not even do a separate video. I'm also going to do some other things, but thank you all so much for tuning into the stream. That's about it for me today, guys, because, yeah, my throat's fucking killing me. And our shit, man. But, yeah, but thank you all so much for watching. Hopefully, you all had a great holidays and everything like that. I'll see y'all later. And, of course, we got a big boxing card, I think, what is it, next week? With Lamont Roach versus Isaac Cruz and Foster versus Fulton. And I think there's one other good card on there. But, yeah. But, anyways, that's pretty much about it. Thank you all so much for watching. Talk to y'all later, man. Thank you all for tuning in. And peace out.